return to the classics.
Uno, two, tres, four.
Inside, we are same, but different, but still same.
Hello. I don't know if my mic needs to be a bit closer. I think that's good. Question mark. I don't remember. I moved my mic around last night trying to fucking be epic. Get that shit in bed. Like, I was trying to use my mic in bed, so I was wondering if I could stream in bed. But that didn't work, so. Anyways, hello. Seal arrive. Okay, I've actually never done this on stream, so this might take a minute. We'll see. I'll try to, like, give some justifications, but it will probably take a minute. Opinions nobody asked for. Lip sync's a little sensitive, but it seems to work, so I won't complain too much. The head bobbing's better than I expected. Okay. Let us begin. I need to find a good way to get this on the stream without wanting to off myself. Give me one sec. I figure this one out. We can move on. I might just log into my Google account on fucking Waterfox, I guess. Give me one sec. bothering me that it's unsupported. It's like, it's Water Fox, bro, I know. Anyways, see, how do we get this rolling? Oh, did it take a shit? Oh god. No, I think it's okay now. It lost the tracking. Alright. I don't have nightlight on, that explains a lot. I wonder why everything seems so bright. Alright. Here you go. Here's the Epic Final Fantasy XIV tier list. So I'm gonna make 2 of these. I'm gonna make one per like fight and difficulty basis. And I'm gonna do one for every fight. So trying to think, what's the best way to do this? So S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier. Probably just F tier. I don't know. I don't really feel like doing a D. Okay. F tier for fuck this fight. I can already put Shiva in there. I wish. Okay, so what are the metrics we're gonna use here? So fun is the obvious one. Every ranking's going to be subjective. The fight fucking working. Functionality is probably the easiest way to functionality. Difficulty relative to tag. Like, for example, you know, the first turn of Savage should be more fun than difficult. The fourth turn should be more difficult than the previous 3. Ultimate should be, you know, fairly hard. Extreme should be fairly easy unless you needed to get into like a Savage. Like, for example, Sephiroth was pretty good because you need to farm it to get into, you need to have better DPS during the Midas tier, so I like that. Okay, and then we need to get every fight. So like, an S tier is gonna be like, everything here is perfect. Then like A tier is like, most of these are good. There might be like one small problem. B tier is like, one of these is really bad, or not really bad, but like one of these is lacking, or two of them are kind of lacking. I should probably write this down. So S equals all 3. Perfect. And A is one section lacking slightly. B is one section very lacking, or 2 sections lacking slightly. C would be like, oh, I never put my VTuber thing on here. Give me one sec. I completely forgot about that. That would probably be a bit better, huh? Copy and paste reference. Yeah. Oh wait, no, actually I should paste the other reference. Give me one sec. Copy and paste reference. Perfect. Okay. Much better. Okay, so C, 2 sections lacking, very lacking. 1 section completely failed. Or 3, lacking slightly. Move this over a little bit, there we go. F. Failures on all fronts. Okay. That should do. Yeah, fun is obviously just how much fun the fight is. Functionality is things like ping-based mechanics, not enjoyable, mechanics not working, and then difficulty is like relative. Like, for example, A6 should not be harder than A7, or you can look at it as A7 should be harder than A6, like that. Shit like that. So, going from top to bottom here, we have... We'll start with Gordius. So we have... Is it Oppressor? I want to say it's Oppressor. Yeah, Oppressor. Trash Waves in A2S. I'll put the tag by them too, actually. So A1S, A3S Liquid, 4S Manipulator. Just put Guardian in F right away. We all know it, yeah. Probably. I'm actually gonna list all the fights first, because I want to make a copy of this sheet. Robot Council. Quick thanks. An A10. I always forget what his name is. Why is it not? Creator Savage. Strike blocks, yeah. The unfortunate round rocks. Oh yeah, lame brick strike blocks. There we go. Blue Chaser. One S is I can't remember any of these names, dude. It's driving me insane. Catastrophe? Yeah. I'm not good with names. I'm gonna rate the Faust fights as separate. Yeah, no, Catastrophe sounds good. And then... I don't know what's wrong with my brain tonight. I think I've just been, like, dumping the shit out of my head. Chatternuke, yeah. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with that. And not Kefka. NS Chaos, O10S Midgard, O11S, Omega Beetle, and then O12S Part 1 is M and F, and well, S part 2 is final Omega. E1S, there's a lot of fights. Prime, E2S. Weight Walker? Is that the name? I actually don't remember. Yeah, Void Walker. Okay. And in terms of all these fights, I'm only going to rank them if they were in Heaven's Word or later. Chi Omega? Why does Yoshida let you have 3 boss fights? And Titan. 5S is Ramu. S is 6S is my brain. Oh yeah, Ifrit Garuda. And then Birds. And then Shiva. Okay, so that's all our Savage fights. Next is Ultimates. We have Bahamut. I'll just put their tags. Yukab, Uwu, and T. And now we need all the extreme primals. Is this even accurate? Looks like it is. Although it doesn't include Varus. Hold on. Barrier. Ah, yeah, perfect. So we want to start from here. So yeah, we have Ravana, Bismarck, Singularity Reactor. Is that Thoradin? Yeah, it's Thoradin. Sophia, Zervin. Oh, and Nidhogg. Then we go to Zano, Shimmy, his name is Siryu, but I don't remember how to spell it. Shinryu. See, I couldn't even remember that. Fucking brain AFK at the moment. And Byakko? That's Tsukiyomi, right? Again, I don't remember how to... I remember the fight, I just don't remember how to pronounce it, so... Copy-paste done. Tsukiyomi. Rathalos. I do not think I spelled that correctly. I did not. Alrighty. Then it is Suzaku. Yeah, I think I was getting Shinryu and Suzaku confused in my head, spelling-wise. Oh yeah, and there's Siryu. They're all they all start with an S, dude. What is this? Oh, this is Yojimbo. Okay, I'm not counting Yojimbo because it's not an extreme, so we're not ranking that. We're ranking like stuff that I would qualify as raid content. And it's a Titania. Titania. Innocence. Hades. Ruby Wep. And finally, Varus. So that is since Heavensward, this is all our Savage, Ultimate, and Extremes. So, there you go. I'm gonna duplicate this sheet real fast. So this one's gonna be overall rankings. And this one will be, relative rankings. Like, relative to their bracket? Okay. Let me... So let's start with some Savage, and I'll play the music for the fights as we do them. Okay, so Oppressor. So Oppressor Savage is actually a pretty good first turn. So Gordy's came off like the tail end of people complaining that Final Coil was too easy. Like they got out of second coil, and they were like, "Oh, that's a bit much." So Final Fantasy was like, "Okay, we'll make Final Coil a bit easier." But then they were like, "What the fuck? Why is Bahamut so easy? This is the last fight. Like, what the fuck?" So they're like, "All right, you want hard? You'll get hard." So for Oppressor, you have shit like... Also, hey, Mean Bug. What'd you do your spreadsheet for? Anyways, so Oppressor, we have double tank busters. I mean, we have two targets for a majority of the fight. I'll try to like kind of put my thoughts down as so we have double targeting. Like you have to, for the first turn, you have to burn evenly-ish, bait resin correctly, kill robots to mini missiles, double tank busters, proximity, AoEs, plus the resin. So the resin drops on your feet as you're baiting, as you're dodging this AoE. Keeping track of map shit. That only exists to make Braille fits of the week. I see. Okay, so there's a lot here, and everything hits pretty hard. So there's a lot going on here. So difficulty relative to tag is actually, it's a little high. Like, I think Oppressor is probably harder than Ratfinks, not much. But it's way harder than Ratfinks and I mean, it's a bit harder than Ratfinks, and it's way harder than Trash Compactor. So... should put, like, see if I can get, like, a video of, the fight on screen. That might help as well. Yeah, that might be a good idea. Let's try that. So, A1S, FFXIV. This is probably good. I'm not going to, like, kind of turn this down a bit. So it's like, the original part of this, oh yeah, and the prey markers. So the prey markers work by just fucking, like, just dropping a fuck ton of damage on you. Like, you just get marked with one person, he just gets fucking hit. I don't even think you can pass the prey in this fight, which is something very interesting. And mostly this phase doesn't last too long, it just kind of introduces you to shit. Resin gets marked on random players, and they stick. Then you have just this giant, like, line AoE that you have to deal with here. Like, you have to understand, this is the first turn. And we have raid wides, I believe. Yeah, you have these alarms. So the alarms have a... So these are... So if you've done Jagdals in T, the alarms function similarly. So they tether to the first person that hits them, and they hit you with a debuff. If you get too many of these stacks right here, let me full screen so it's a bit easier to see. So if you get too many of these stacks right here, you get minied, and this hurts your healing and your damage. I believe you take more damage as well. It's been a very long time, but when they're killed, they drop a puddle that will so you know how I said if you get too many debuffs, you get a mini debuff. If you step in that puddle, you get the mini debuff instantly. There's no stacks, and that comes into play later. You need to use those mini puddles to deal with the missiles. I do not believe he does missiles right here. I believe this is an introduction of the alarms. So they leave an AoE. I believe that kills if you hit it, and then it leaves the purple mini puddle. And yeah, just tons of fucking raid-wise. I'm gonna kind of skip through parts of this. Yeah, I don't believe they have you do the mini shit here. Damage dealt down plus taken. It also reduces your healing, I remember that correctly. So, at this point, when the lights turn red, it snapshots its whatever health you have. And spawns another one called Oppressor 0.5. So, the other tank has to pick that up. And then they immediately start just doubling these mechanics. So, and here begins the missile mechanics. So there are multiple missiles around the arena. I believe there are 2 per robot for a total of 4. Each DPS needs to grab one alarm, drag it over to this missile beam, and kill it before it gets minied. Because I think if you get minied, you're having a hard time. If you have 4 people getting minied right before double raid wide, it really fucking hurts. As you can see, you can already see, just take a look at that damage. Take a look at this fucking damage from double raid wide. Like, it hits so fucking hard. Like 70%? And that's with Protect on? Like, if you're minied and you don't have Protect, like, let's just say you died and then you got minied, you're like 100% fucking dead here. Then you have resins to bait. So these resins stick around a really fucking long time. You need to make sure they're baited away, because the alarms can get caught by the resin as well, and it can make it harder for you to do this mechanic. Then you have double raid wise. These things are fucking huge. They're really easy to dodge, but these things are fucking huge. If you're stuck in resin, it can be hard to dodge them. And yeah, again, just constant fucking raid lights. Like, look how much fucking damage. Look at these healers' fucking mana. And then you have praise, again. So you have double raid wide into double single target, and then after that, double tank buster. Like, the damage here is fucking insane if you have minimum item level. Meanwhile, the DPS are all doing their job. And the tanks need to make sure, obviously, they're keeping themselves alive. Like I said, I think Paladin still had Stone Skin. And yeah, they're the busters. Okay. Again, Protect, Shield Oath. Shield Oath back then is 20% mitigation, I believe. And then a 40%, and maybe a 30% back in the day. So we have like 50%, 60% mitigation. And just look how hard he got fucking hit. Now, the first one was a whole game. Like, yeah. I think he was top there. Let me see if he snuck in an auto. No. Or he may have snuck in an auto. I don't know, but he got hit pretty hard. And that's, like, pretty heavy mitigation, all things considered. Like, he didn't have Stone Skin. He didn't have add low. But I think for personal tank cooldowns, that's pretty hefty. And yeah, you see like, these AoE patterns. They can get fucking ridiculous. The biggest thing, the only thing that makes this fight, like, not impossible is that all of the mechanics pretty much show themselves right here. Like, the first minute or two of the fight, it's like, there's a lot of looping mechanics here. Which is probably what plays to the fight's strengths, because if it introduced extra shit, it would be kind of rough. Yeah, and there's another tank buster. Like I said, you see how much fucking damage is going out. Look at this mana. They are completely ruthless. Then after a while, they'll fly away, and you'll have a proximity AoE from where they leave, I believe. So in order to avoid this damage, or in order to avoid how much damage you take, you run to the wall. Or you kind of run in a way to where you'll be away from at least one or both of them. The issue is, while they're gone, they will drop resin puddles. So you need to kind of stutter stepping. You should be able to see them doing it here. So you need to bait these resins while doing the proximity mechanic. And like I said, you just keep stepping, And I believe if you eat the resin AoE, you don't die, but it does, like, a lot of your health. Like, if you eat the last resin AoE here, and then as they're dropping, you're 100% dead. Unless somebody's quick with a Tetra, or a Benny, or whatever. And then, yeah, you can see the kind of damage they do as they drop. So, everyone took about 70% again. And you have to understand that this is pretty much as far as you can get from these AoEs. Like, one person's in the corner here, and the other one's on the opposite sides. Like, the damage here is what I want to stress upon you. Damage is absolutely fucking insane. And I don't think there's actually much else to this fight that I couldn't already, like, explain to you. Because, yeah, a lot of it's just looping mechanics after that point. Like, you can explain this fight in, like, a couple minutes. The final mechanic, obviously, is that you have to kill them both at the same time, which is, yeah. They also have... I don't think they have a relatively generous DPS check. I don't think it's super hard. But it's not like, oh, you can just die a bunch of times and pass this. Like, it's real. And then, yeah, after you kill the first one, you have, like, 5 seconds, I want to say, to kill the other one. So much going on, yeah. Like, yeah, once you've killed the 0.5 or the original, you have about 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, you have a bit more than I was thinking. Okay, so it's a pretty generous burn, but you can't just completely ignore it. So, yeah, that should kind of, like, put it in your head, like this kind of first turn is way harder than anything else that you've seen. Like, if you joined in, like, Stormblood, this fight completely fucking grinds. It grinds, like, it all under its heel, because it's just, there's so much fucking damage. So it's just, like, absolutely fucking insane. Like, Oppressor is harder than, relative to the first turn, is harder than Ratfinks slightly, Trash Compactor by far, and then, like, all of these don't even, like, count. Like, nothing. Yeah, it could qualify as a second or third turn in a current tier. Like, the fight is super punishing. There's not a lot you can get away with. So, I find this kind of difficulty quite fun, and I think it's a good first turn, because it, like, I think it accomplishes what it set out to do, because it's like, hey, this is the real shit. You remember Final Coil? We ain't doing that anymore. We're doing the real shit. So I find that quite fun. I think it succeeds at what it does. Now, functionality, I don't remember ever having a problem with that fight. I don't think there's a lot of ping-based stuff going on in there. And then as the first turn, compared to the rest of these fights, like, I think A2 is not as hard, but I think A3, like, the difficulty curve makes most sense. So I think Oppressor's an S tier fight. I think it accomplishes all it sets out to do. I think it's fun. I think another big thing, I should add this actually. Let me move this down one. All jobs have similar difficulty, because lopsided fight design is, like, one of this game's biggest problems lately. So, like, the healers have a fuck ton of healing to do. The DPS have to make sure their resin baits are perfect, along with the healers, on top of making sure they can kill their alarms. They need to burn the 2 bosses quickly. And, I mean, obviously they have to keep open rage. Tanks get fucking trucked. I think tanks don't have, like, a terrible job, but there's a lot of aggro, positioning, busters out the ass, on top of trying to make sure all your mitigation reaches the whole party. I think it accomplishes everything it sets out to do. I think this is an S tier fight. I think it's fun. It works. It's got a good place in this tier's difficulty curve. We'll talk about A2 later. And I think all the jobs have something to do. So yeah, I think this is an S tier fight for sure. Okay, now let us move on to this fucking fight. I hate this fucking fight. I'll try not to take too long for each of these fights, but yeah, this fight is less than stellar. So, this fight actually tries a lot of new fucking things, but the issue is, it still kind of sucks. So, if you're unfamiliar with this fight is essentially a wave of trash. So what happens is, it's just waves of heavier hitting enemies, more enemies, and you just kind of have to clear them wave by wave. And the only way you really know when it's over is when Quick Thinks kind of talks to you. So obviously here it says Gobwalker's like, oh yeah, the fight's starting. While that's going on, Quick Thinks drops bombs on you, so one person has to be dedicated with the Gobwalker to be stunning mobs, dragging bombs, and recharging their power. So let me preface this. I think the Gobwalker is a good idea in theory, but I think requiring it to be the whole fight was really, really stupid. Because one person has to be the Parsecuck. I can even show you. I can pull up my old ass logs. Give me a sec. One person has to be the Parsecuck, and it fucking sucks. So we go Heavensward, Ordeus, and then like you can tell, like yeah, like you're active 11% of the time, 166 DPS. Like you're the car cuck. You don't get to do any damage. You get a free gray. It really fucking sucks. Even if there wasn't parsing, even if we went back in time and we killed FF logs or whatever, it would still feel pretty bad because you're just in there the whole fucking fight. It's like the minute I think after the first wave or two, you have to go in there, and on top of that, it doesn't really accomplish much with what it changes. It's like there's a lot of silence checks, there's a lot of things you need to burn first, but it's really not that interesting. Like your mechanics are silence, recharge. Who did you pick to do it usually? Usually just one of the DPS. Yeah, I don't think it really mattered who. I think people that had heavy single target DPS, like Monk, usually got put in the cuck's position because like Summoner and Black Mage can do more AoE back then. So generally, yeah, you'd have one person be the car cuck. It actually may have been the fourth one. And then yeah, the hard helps have to be fucking stunned or interrupted. Snipers hit extremely hard. Like you can see they're covering the healers here. It's kind of ridiculous. And like there really isn't anything interesting for me to explain to you beyond like they hit hard, you need to burn them. So it's like there's not a lot of interesting mechanics here. I think it was interesting that they tried, but I think they failed pretty hard. Like, I respect the attempt to do something different, but I don't agree with it at all. And there's really not much for me to say here. I can skip through this fight, it's just like, who they have in here? Oh, they actually have the Scholar do it. For my group, we have the single target DPS do it. Because again, also the DPS check isn't that hard. It's really just a heal check and a sustain. It's mostly a heal check. My experience, heal check and tank check. I don't think the DPS have nothing to do. In fact, they have to be smart about which targets to pick. But it's not... Yeah, it's a very WoW-style vehicle execution fight, but yeah. It's like they very, very clearly were trying to copy WoW, but they just completely failed. I don't think it was good at all. I like, respected it the first clear because I was like, oh, that was something different, and then every re-clear was fucking miserable. Every re-clear was fucking miserable. So it's just like, it's an unfortunate thing because I want to like it because it tried to be different. But it just completely failed. So I don't think it's fun. Functional is fine. And difficulty, I think it failed. Because it's easier than A1. I think there's a lot less to do in it. Like, it's the same heal check that the A1 had. But... turn that down a bit. So it's the same heal check that A1 had. But it's just like, the DPS check's much lower. There's not a burn. And all the jobs do not have similar difficulty. The tanks and healers get fucking shit on, and the DPS don't have a ton to do, which is unfortunate. So, while it does work, I guess, I don't really think that serves it very well. Like, I could say it's functional, but it's only because it didn't try, so I don't think that counts. So I do think this is an F-tier fight. I do think it tried, and it failed. And that's how I feel about that one. So, next we can move on to Mr. Game Destroyer himself. So for those who weren't there at the time, there were a lot of problems with this game. Resetting cooldowns was one of them. No reset on death was a big one. No cross-server PF. And this fight's difficulty spike was absolutely fucking insane. I don't want to open up the pick. First guide. Or the world first. So... I imagine you guys are less confused about this fight since T is a thing. But the big thing here is the DPS check was extremely strict in minimum mind level. If you walked in here with pentamelded crafted gear and Ravana weapons, if you fucked up at all, you were gonna be shit on. Now, I did this fight a good bit. I never met the check, but I can kind of give you, like, how it felt. It kind of, at the time, it felt like you had no margin for error. Like, none of these mechanics are, I can't really tell you, like, like anything new about these mechanics. They're all pretty much the same. There is an ads phase as well, but again, it really just hit extremely hard. It had a lot of shit to do, and there's a lot going on. Like I said, this is a 13-minute fight for world first, and like I said, I would say a death was a wipe. Like we're talking DPS check at minimum level. We're talking this DPS check was tighter than fucking tighter than Ultimates. It was absolutely fucking insane. It is not so hard to say, or it's not impossible to say that this fight almost killed the game. It also doesn't help that a lot of people weren't as good at this game back then. But this fight almost killed the game. Like, it was just, like, the combination of no reset on CDs, extremely punishing, no cross-server PF, so you couldn't find a group that was good enough to do this fight. It was insanely difficult. Oh, yeah, and a fucking digititis. Like, it was just, like, it was prey swapping, and it sucked, and, yeah. So, digititis, you could think of it as just fucking prey swapping. Don't you have to make the hands clap? So it has the closed fist, the open palm from T. But also, yeah, there's prey swapping that gets locked in after... Oh yeah, and there's tank swaps, I'm sorry, because there's blunt resist down. I completely forgot about that. So yeah, a couple things that you don't see in T is the ads, the blunt resist down, which forces a tank swap, and the digititis. So one person gets marked for healing down. I believe 2 people get marked for damage down. Actually, it might just be 1 damage down, 1 healing down, and 1 damage up, or vuln up, or whatever. Are these also the tethers? Yeah. Did they ever explain why they made this one so hard specifically? Well, we always assumed... I mean, I don't know why they made this one hard specifically, but the entirety of Gordius was a response to Final Coil. I would say Living Liquid is... No, I wouldn't call it Brutalis, because Brutalis was at the gate of Sunwell Plateau. And I don't think it's as hard as Twins, either. I don't know. I don't know where I'd put this. Oh, also, yeah. The hand would grab somebody, and you'd have to kill it before it reached the edge as well. That was another mechanic. Oh, yeah, they just LB'd it, because it's like, yeah, that check was insane as well. And, like, yeah, they didn't even kill it with an LB3. Holy fuck. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd call it. I don't know, it's hard to say. I feel like there's a fight in the Sunwell I could, like, point out better. But I'm not sure exactly what I would compare it to. But again, it almost killed it almost killed. So, going back to our prerequisites here. So was it fun? Yeah, it was great. I enjoyed every moment of Prague I did. I imagine some people considered it a bit less fun because of how much of a ball buster it was. But the way I thought about it was there's not a whole lot of fights left in this game that are relevant. So I want it to, at the 3rd and 4th turns, I want it to bust my balls because that makes it last longer. Think of how much of a scrub guild killer it was. No, you're probably right. There was a Nax boss that I think kind of fits closer, but yeah, you're probably right. Like Valcatraz, I don't even remember how to pronounce it, but it was the corrupt boss in Blackwing Lair. I would say it's pretty close. Yeah, you're probably right. There were some, yeah, the 4 riders. That's what I was thinking, the 4 riders. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. So fun. I thought it was pretty fun. I think the ball bust scene is a little much, especially considering how fucking hard the next fight is. Functionality mostly was good, but the tethers kind of had some problems. Prey passing on scuffed-ass pings sucked, so it was okay. I would consider functionality lacking slightly. Difficulty relative, I think difficulty curve-wise, this tier, it's fine. All jobs have similar difficulty, yeah. So I would say this is an A tier fight. Just because I think some of the functionality was a bit lacking. But I think it was a fantastic fight. I was not around when it released, but I've heard enough stories. Yeah, I never cleared it, but I pugged it a bunch, and cleared it like a couple tiers after, or like a tier after. It was a ball buster, I can say that for sure. But it was a good fight. Next we're on fucking Manipulator. Yeah, Gordius had some fucking problems, that's all I'm gonna say. So, Manipulator was not brought... Much of this fight did not come back for T. And there is a huge fucking reason for it. Oh yeah, they have the intro screen here. So, this fight is cancer. So in Savage, there are four ads that need to be killed, like the 4 legs. And there's just... I don't know how to, like, put it into words, honestly. But I can tell you that the fun part was not great. You remember how I said Digititis sucked because it was prey passing with like ping mechanics? Nisi in this fight was Digititis for the whole fight. It was just like you had to keep Digititis, like you had to keep Nisi running the whole fight. It's very similar to T, but it's way, way worse. The Nisi had to be kept going the entire fight to pass the mechanic later, like at the very end. On top of that, it opened with this piece of shit. So, this piece of shit is the orb. So one person gets marked for orbs. Orbs spawn all around the arena, and they start coming towards that fucking guy. The party members all need to intercept it because obviously you can't take more than like one. I mean, you'll kind of see this happen here. I think they have healers doing it. Also, there's ground AoEs. I don't think they'll stick. No, they're just explosions. The functionality being fucked when they did similar things in prior fights was a real head scratcher. Yeah, it really was. I don't understand. Like, it's the same. I mean, like, at least with Twintani, it was like the first final fight. But like with Living Liquid, I feel like they should have learned by then. But yeah, you can kind of see healer heals himself, takes one, and kind of moves on. And you have to focus the legs. You focus the legs in a specific order because the boss becomes targetable right after fucking right after you kill one of the legs. Pretty sure it was healers that got targeted for orbs. Yeah, I just didn't remember who took them. That sounds right. And yeah, obviously you have the Seeds of the Sky, I think was the name. And that's a kill if you get hit by it. While that's going on, 2 people will get imprisoned and have a relatively difficult DPS on top of being fucking pulled away from the party. And then there's resistance downs while you're in that DPS check room. On top of that, the other tank's getting bustered. On top of that, there's tethers to intercept, which is funny. The tethers in this fight actually work a bit better than the drainage tethers. At Quarantine, yeah. Quarantine is cool the first few times, but it quickly gets annoying. Doesn't this also have MP damage? If you do not interrupt the Fosdals, or the Jagdals, if you don't interrupt their Fair Kugel, yeah, like, it just deletes all your MP and TP. It's fucking insane. Like, this is not fun way of painting difficulty. Like, it's absolutely a fucking nightmare. And yeah, here's the tethers that you have to intercept. They work a bit better because there's like a thing in the way, but they still do a small AoE that you have to like spread out for. For the most part, though, the first phase of this fight isn't too bad. I thought the boss itself had a 3k MP beam too. I believe you can either... I think it's one of the legs that casts that, and I'm pretty sure it's interruptible. But yeah, that sounds right too. Again, this is a fight I pugged and didn't clear, so... Take these with a little grain of salt, but I mean, I saw most of the fight when it was relevant, and I cleared it relatively quickly after it was... Yeah, I cleared it within the expansion. So... Trying to see if we can move on to past the legs, because there isn't a whole lot going on. Ah, yeah, here's the Jagdoll feed. So the Strafdoll is a big motherfucker that needs to be tanked by the off-tank. He busters it, he has fair kugels that need to be interrupted. On top of that, the Jagdoll spawn that need to be fed to him. It's very similar to how Living Liquid works. If you don't feed it, it does damage relative to percentage. It's actually less generous than T. Because it will do damage extremely accurately to how low you feed it. I want to see how low they actually get them in the fight before they feed them. I'm gonna spend more time on this fight than most of the other ones because I didn't consider myself like a real raider back then. I like did the fights, but I wasn't like nearly as good as I was in Midas. So, and yeah, like we're talking 10%. Look at this damage. Like we're talking like at like 10-20%. It's way more than fucking T, in my opinion. The only reason T seems like more is because you feed them so quickly.
Might all be after the second jag in the next phase, though.
Yeah, look at all the resistance down on the warrior. It's pretty fucking insane. See if we can skip forward a little bit. Ah, yeah, now here's the Nisi. So, how the Nisi works is very simple. The Nisi is a dot with 5 stacks on it. The higher the stack, the more damage you take. If a Nisi A player touches a Nisi B player, they both die, and they lose the debuff. Touching either of these characters will pass the Nisi. You need, I want to say, you have to pass it around for a while, but I think you don't have to, like, I think you need multiple people with the debuff. I don't remember because it was so bad that nobody bothered to do it. 6 people, yeah. I believe there's 6 pinnacles, so nobody bothered to do it. But what people did was they ran through the pinnacles without the Nisi, which kills you, but they managed to abuse the server tick to get 2 per death, so they would sack 3 people to clear all 6. And that was just because they didn't want to heal this Nisi shit. Because you have to consider all the damage from the Shrapnel and Manipulator, and then you also have to heal this fucking, what is this, 3k dot at 5 stacks? 2k at 4 stacks. It's like, yeah, it does a fuck ton of damage. And then, yeah, you have the Shrapnel again, you have the Buster on the main tank. I think you have random mini Busters on, like, just random players, so you have to, like, constantly stay spread. It was kind of a fucking nightmare. I'm not super, like, versed in this, but yeah, people just decide to fuck this mechanic. Like, they don't even bother to keep it running. Like, most people, I don't think Elysium, I think Elysium did it legit, which, good job to you, I guess, but on top of all, like, on paper, this isn't too bad, but on top of this, the DPS check was even worse than Living Liquid. I believe you couldn't clear this fight with Ravana weapons and crafted. I believe you had to have, like, a week or 2 of gear to fucking clear this fight. So you have to understand, like, lots of ads, fuck ton of damage, you're pulled out of the arena, you can't clear it without gear, like, you legitimately are walled by gear. It makes for a very fucking unfun fight. I'll see if I can skip through this, because we've seen a lot of the mechanics already. Let's see if we get to Royal Pinnacles and see how they do it. The issue is, yeah, another issue is there isn't a ton of variation here in terms of, like, what's happening. Like, we spent, like, 5 minutes discussing the mechanics, and it's looping again. Like, it's already looping. Yeah, here's Carnage 0. That's just a random fucking AoE on random players, and, like, that does 60% of their health, 50%, give or take. And then, yeah. Also, you have another orb that flies to a healer that has to be soaked by the whole fucking party. Or at least a good majority of them. Oh, no, they did the sack strat here. Okay. And yeah, you can kind of see. And yeah, they were trying to abuse server ticks, so shit didn't fucking work. Like, it's another problem with the functionality in this game. But it shows really badly in this fight. Like, this fight is... Like, again, yeah, they just didn't fucking care. Again, they sacked and they didn't have LB to heal them, so they just fucking went for it. Like, you have to understand, like, this fight fucking sucks. Like, I think Elysium did... So there was a sack strat in Brute Justice as well, but I don't think Elysium even did it. So you have to like, they wanted to do it legit. They didn't want to do this legit. That's how much it fucking sucks. Let me see if I can pull it back to see before they get LB. Because, yeah, I think Royal Pinnacle came out here. Yeah, right here. Thanks, Twitch, question mark? There we go. What did they use that LB on, actually? Oh, they LB'd the boss, okay. So they just took all those deaths. Very interesting. They don't even have a summoner. I think they may have done one of the Royal Pinnacles legit, and then maybe sacked the other one, I have no fucking clue. But yeah, you have to understand the amount of damage that the heal check was insane. DPS check was super fucking punishing. You couldn't clear the fight without gear, I want to say. Although again, people were worse at this game back then, so that may not be true. But again, at the time, the DPS check was fucking brutal. It's like you just come out of fucking, yeah, they did this legit, okay. And yeah, taking one pinnacle completely takes away the niece from you. On top of giving you a vuln up, so you absolutely cannot take 2 unless you're sacking.
No, you're right. Sorry. Whatever.
So yeah, it's, the developers intended you keeping the Nisi run the whole fight. Yeah. Like you could not clear this fight without a week or 2 of raid gear. It fucking sucked.
I will have Indom first.
So going back to this, fun. Wouldn't call it very fun. I don't think it introduces enough new mechanics in the later phases, which is actually something that newer fights have done better. The DPS check and healing check, hard DPS checks can usually be fun, but if it's gear walled, it's not fun. Functionality, I think, I mean, Nisi can be a little weird, but I think it mostly fine, but I don't think it's fun. I think the difficulty curve is fine, but, like, the fun is the big thing in here. I don't think it's as bad as A2 per se, because I think, I think the difficulty spread is fair, like, between all the jobs. I think the difficulty curve is fine. I mean, obviously, if you want to fight hard in A3, that's a fine difficulty curve, but it's not fun. The gear wall sucks, and then Nisi passing is unfortunate. I just, like, the fun is so monumental low here. Functionality is, like, weird feeds, like, the Jackdolls can be fucking weird. There's a lot of ping-based shit, like interrupting Farrakugel. Nisi was worse than Allegan Rot. No, you're 100% right. Outside of 07, which we'll get to later. But yeah, I think the difficulty curve's fine. I think the functionality is pretty lacking. And then like the job spread is fine. But I think it mostly fails in the fun category. And the functionality is pretty lacking. So, yeah, I think C is fair here. Honestly, I think I should have made a D and put it in there, but I think C is fair. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a completely fucking miserable fight. I don't know. It didn't fail at everything it set out to do, but I think it's just symptomatic of, like, what they tried to do, and, like, with this tier and how they failed at it. Why was A2S so low? Oh, so A2S is just a trash wave. Being in the cart sucks. It has less to do in the fight than A1. It works just fine, I guess. But I don't even give it that because it doesn't do much. A lot of these mobs are just like, we attack you, AoE us down. We may have a silence check every so often. And then one person gets to be the parse cuck. Difficulty relative to tag. It's easier than A1, from my experience. And it has very lopsided difficulty. Like, I think really just the healers and tanks get trucked. And maybe the Gobwalker. But the 3 DPS that are outside the Gobwalker have nothing to fucking do besides AoE and pray. It fucking sucks. I think it failed at everything it set out to do. Even if it was functionally fine, I don't think it tried enough things to, like, justify it, I guess is what I would say. Like, yeah, functionality is fine, so it's 1 out of 4, so technically it should be in C. But it didn't, like, it didn't try anything. Like, it worked, but okay. Congratulations, you managed to add a mob into your video game you've been making for years now. It's like, okay, dude, I don't really think it's fair to, like, say it's functional. Like, Manipulator is technically functional, but it tries a lot more than A2. Yeah, that's where I put it where it is. So yeah, we had 2 pretty good fights and 2 really fucking bad ones. It's like, fun-wise, this is an F. Like, overall, I would call it a C, but fun-wise, I would say it's an F. It's like, gear walling your fights is the worst fucking decision you can make, I think. In this game, I don't think gear walling is good at fucking all. That's why I put it where it was. I'm gonna get a drink real fast, and we'll get back to fucking rat things real fast. Hype this real quick. Ugh. Okay, let's see if my VTuber's all fucked up. Yes, she is. Okay. Give me 1 sec. Gotta fix her. Having a stroke, I'm sorry. She's still kind of having a stroke. 1 sec. There we go, much better. Alright. Hide the UI. There we go. That should be a bit better. Okay. Let me get a drink. So, overall, I think Gordius, a lot of Gordius's problems were the cooldowns and no cross-server PF back then, because like, ball-bustingly hard isn't inherently a problem, but when you have, like, the game's infrastructure just couldn't accommodate this difficulty. I think that's a big reason Gordius is considered, like, a failure. Just because, like, yeah, Gordius's difficulty, I think A4S needed to be reworked, but I think A1 through A3 would have been, like, a relatively subpar tier, but it's just, like, with the difficulty and the infrastructure that Final Fantasy had back then, it just couldn't keep up. Midas was a much better compromise, I think. Okay. If we're good to go, I think we can move on to A5. So A5 is a pretty fucking good fight. I really like A5. I like A1 more overall, but I think A5 succeeds at what it's trying to do. So, for context, like, when we went into Midas, people were like... When we went into Midas, people were like, okay, Gordius was way too much, you need to tone it down a bit. Like, you need to flatten, you need to make this better. And they were like, okay, let's try this. And we have Ratfinks Twinkle. The Ratfinks is a very interesting fight. It tries a lot of new things like A2, but unlike A2, I think it succeeds at everything it does. So for those unfamiliar, we can kind of watch this fight together. So, Ratfinks has 2 modes in this fight, and it's big and small. Biggie small. I think some people used to call this fight biggies. So when you pull him, he immediately gets large. And I believe he opens up with Concussion immediately. I think Concussion was just a forced tank swap, I want to say. Yeah, so he's applying stacks of Headache. It's been a while, so let me watch this again to be sure. So yeah, the Concussion's here. And then, yeah, the swap is for the Big Buster. Or no, I'm sorry, there's, sometimes it's a stack, I think. So sometimes he does a stack and sometimes he does a tank buster, and you can tell by either the stack arrows and him winding up his fist. Yeah, he randomly chooses between. So he'll do either a stack or a buster, and the stack or the buster will originate on whoever has the highest aggro. So the Headache is basically a force swap or an end bolt. Then we have a Prey Marker, and I believe that puts a poison AoE, basically a resin. But it's a lot... No, oh, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. The Prey is a dash. And I believe it's proximity-based as well. So if you're really close to him when he dashes at you, I believe he just kills you. Later on, I believe he also does a room-wide AoE after. So you have to get behind him. So then after the dash, he gets small, he runs out of his steroids. And I believe that red dot above that guy's head was the poison. Yes, correct. Been a while. And you have to be careful where you drop that, because there's a lot. You need to make sure you have, like, room to move. Then you have these Cobras where you need to kill. I don't remember. I think they just put a poison dot on you. But I believe it's a very nasty poison dot. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. So, on top of that, he pairs that with a Radawide. So how you cleanse this is, anytime you stand in the middle, these 4 syringes around the arena activate. The green one cleanses poison, so very simple. So you have somebody kind of dedicated to touching the center, and then you kind of, yeah, you would. The issue is if you use these puddles too many times, I don't actually remember what happens because I don't think we ever actually had that problem, but I believe it either kills you or it stuns you or does something bad to you. You know, so the idea is you don't want to use these puddles too much, so you can't just cleanse poison every time you get a single stack. So they had to wait to kill the Cobras before. The next mechanic is obviously the bombs. So there's two kinds of bombs in this fight. There is smart bombs, which somebody has to activate the platform, become a gorilla in the red puddle, and then knock these bombs away. On top of that, there's also Bomberman bombs, which explode in the cross. You have to find the safe spot while also dodging the cross bombs. The easiest way to do it here, in this phase, is to just punt the gorilla bomb into the cross bomb. And you'll see this result. Yeah, good to go. We'll go big again. And here's boost, and this is, you have to turn to a bird or you die. Very simple. But on top of this in Savage, he also does Bomberman bombs again, so he does cross bombs. So so you have plenty to do while you can't hit the boss. So you turn to a bird and then you find the safe spot. Pretty simple. So yeah, there was actually a double safe spot fight. So you had to like hide behind one bomb and then go into the corner. Pretty cool. I found it pretty hard to like wrap my head around back when I played this game. We have another prey marker. I believe that's another dash. I believe this is the room-wide AoE right here. I could be wrong. Nope, I'm right. So he'll turn around and use Gobhook, and you have to be behind him. He's pretty generous with the timing here, so like you said, the Black Mage had plenty of time to get him. And this is also a pretty short fight compared to its contemporaries. It's an 8-minute fight, like, and they're beating the fuck out of him. You can tell that they kind of toned it down a good bit in terms of DPS and healing checks compared to A1. So like, the biggest thing I want you to take away from here is not that it's less mechanically dense than A1, but it's not nearly as punishing. Like, DPS and heal checks are way lower than A1. And, oh yeah, there was the headache. In case you missed it, yeah, that was the Tank Buster. Again, Tank Buster doesn't hit nearly as hard as A1. Minimum item level. Then you have the Gobbledygook, which is an ad that needs to be killed. I believe he tethered... So this is where the final puddle from Savage comes into play. So the blue puddle turns you invisible. And that works for the Gobbledygook. So the Gobbledygook will tether to a random player, and he needs to go invisible, and then the tank needs to pick him up. And the reason that is because he autos pretty hard, and he also cleaves, so you want to make sure he's pointed away from the party here. Kinda... I think we've seen most of what is done in this fight. I believe there's one more phase we're missing here. I don't remember. It's been a long time. Happened here. Oh yeah, he just got clipped by the bomb. There's a big ad phase towards the end. Yeah, oh yeah, the pigs. I think that's in here. But yeah, you can kind of see that like it's not like mechanically sparse as well. There's a lot to do in. Not to say the fight was any slouch either. We have a stack, and then double dashes, and then a room-wide AoE. Like, this fight didn't, like, it wasn't, like, easy. It was just, like, because the DPS and heal check was so much easier, it felt a good bit easier than. Although A1 wasn't really, like, super punishing either, but it's just, like, it felt a bit more generous. I think a lot of groups that I took through this fight as opposed to A1 could get away with a lot more deaths than A1. I'm not telling you A1 was absurdly hard. A2 wasn't either, but it's just like, yeah, you could get away there with a lot more deaths. So these busters don't hit near as hard. Like, he has Vengeance, and he got down to half, where Sentinel Shield Oath in A1 would have knocked you down about 70%. So you can see that they've brought shit back from Gordon. But they do it in a good way. They don't make it just like brain dead easy, like a lot of these newer Savage turns. It's like you still have a good bit to do. Oh yeah, and here's our funny ad phase. So this ad phase can be kind of a clusterfuck, I want to say. Or is this where the pigs spawn? Yeah, here are the pigs. So there's a sniper here, the Gobbledygook, that needs to be killed. On top of that, I believe he has a look away mechanic. Yeah, you have to look away. Yep. It's a petrify where you have to look away. On top of that, there are pigs that need to be killed because I believe if this Minotaur eats them, he just kills the whole raid. So you have to keep the sniper. You have to kill the sniper fast to keep the Minotaur away from the pigs. I believe you feed the Minotaur a copra, and that weakens him enough to kill him. But you can't let him you can't let the pigs get fed to him, and you have to kill the pigs very quickly. Yeah, and there's a copra doing the poison from the original phase, and you have to cleanse that poison on top of feeding the copra to the Minotaur, so he gets weakened and is able to be killed. Again, you have to worry about how many stacks you have drinking the funny puddle stuff. You have a hard limit of how many puddles. I don't remember the number specifically. But after you feed the cobra, it doesn't really matter where the Minotaur is. You just need to kill him and get away from the frontal cleave he does. It's not an absurdly difficult Minotaur to deal with. But anyways, yeah, so compared to A1, there's a bit more mechanics, but it's not nearly as strict as, like, you would find from Gordy, I guess, would be the best way to put it. So fun, I love this fight. I think it's really fun. Functionality, I think it's fine. I think sometimes the Goblixer sample can be a bit finicky sometimes, but I didn't have a ton of problems with it. I think difficulty relative to where it is in the tier is perfect as well. I think it's fine. The difficulty curve is good. All jobs have similar difficulty. Yeah, I would say that's true. Depending on who you have on Goblixer duty, it can feel a bit similar to A2, but I think it accomplishes what it tries to do a lot better. So I think it succeeds in the fun. Functional is mostly fine. I would say it's lacking slightly. Difficulty is perfect, and all jobs have similar difficulty is perfect as well. You could maybe make an argument for B, but I think the DPS have enough to do in this fight to where I think A is fair. I think it's an A tier fight for sure. And next we have A6S. Oh boy, A6S. You want to talk about a fucking difficulty spike? Holy shit. There's also a fun snake ad later, but you usually don't see it. Yeah, I don't think I ever saw it, even like new players. So, A6S. So, if you were unfamiliar, A6S normal is 4 fights. There are 4 instance fights between Blaster, Brawler, Swindler, and Vortexer. I think they're all their names. If you die on Vortexer, you get to try Vortexer again. That is not the case in Savage. Savage, all 4 of these robots are considered one combat encounter. If you die at Vortexer, you go back to Blaster. It is Robot Council. On top of this, the amount of mechanics that you have to learn and do is monumentally more in both A2, A1, and A5. I'm not going to. Oh yes, also they share an enrage. From when you pull Blaster, I believe the enrage is shared between all 4 robots. So if you die and you want to wait for the weakness to go off, you're not going to be able to do that very well. And yeah, there's a lot going on here. Like, I'm not going to go through all these mechanics, but you have to use, like, each of these robots has several mechanics that it has to deal with. Just Blaster has a DPS check in and of himself. You have to bait these robots that do fuck ton damage, and then they charge in a straight line, so you have to dodge them. On top of that, you have to dodge mines, and on top of that, you have to do hidden mines, and you see that in T for sure, so you're not, like, completely aware. Like, just, like, 2 people got killed in the world first. The biggest thing that makes this fight not completely brutal, like A3, is the DPS check isn't as bad. Like, you can pass this DPS check with 2 deaths easily. Like, I don't think anybody struggled with this check. This DPS check is, are you tall enough to ride this ride? Like, they were able to pass it with a healer and a tank death, so I think a DPS death would have been pretty bad, but, you know. After that, he brings out the hidden mines and pretty much does all the things he does. You have to silence Mind Blast or you die. It's really not the DPS check that is hard, or the Enrage. It's the amount of mechanics you're forced to learn. If you're punished, you go all the way back. It's pretty brutal. It kind of reminds me of a mini Ultimate in a way. And like, yeah, he just died to the drop. You have robots that you have to either look towards or look away.
No.
You have hidden mines that need to be popped. There are a lot. Look at all these deaths in this fight. Like, it's absolutely fucking insane. You kill him, then go on to Brawler, and he will do 4 attachments on his gun. You can kind of think of it like Titan, Fates 1. So he has 4 attachments. So single cannon is Buster, double cannon is Stack, single drill is you at proximity, and double drill is the closest and the furthest person. Take a small AoE that stun everybody. Midas was the first turn I cleared in like farms, so I kind of have a bit more, well, what's relevant, so I have a bit more leeway to kind of give my opinions on these things. While Brawler is going on, he has these little chakrams spinning in the air, and they just kind of do an AoE under them, so you just can't be near the chakrams. They're pretty slow. Most of the time, you're not going to have to worry about them, but they can trip you up. They just kind of minimize how much of the room you can use. Kind of do mechanics. Mostly double drill. On top of that, it had tank swaps. It puts a vuln when you do Buster. But overall, for this phase, it's not very hard. But this fight has, like, a phase 2. And this is just a fourth of this whole fight. Which is kind of insane to me. So, like, the second robot of the 4 has a phase 2. And yeah, here you can see it happen. So it becomes untargetable. And it has all these power plasmids. So the alpha, if I remember correctly, is just a straight DPS check. You have to kill it before it reaches the center. I want to say these are called gamma balls. These balls cannot be these balls cannot be, I think they just blow up. Or these are actually no, I believe the tanks soak these. If I remember correctly. I think the betas can't, they have to be sit in the middle. While that's going on, he's doing his attachments. So you saw the tank soak up the gamma, DPS killed the alpha. While that's going on, the healers normally deal with the double drill. One stands right on him and the other one stands at the wall. But I think they had the black mage and one of the healers do that. We have to consider that for the second turn, this is a lot. So the beta is the one that I believe you have to fucking just let up. But you can slow it so you can have it blow up when you want it. That's the big thing. So betas can't be, they have to go in the center, they blow up and they do a huge raid wide, but you can kind of control when that happens. So obviously they slow it down here because they want to heal up after the double cannon, and I believe they let it blow up here.
Single drill.
I believe that's all there is to this fight. You just kind of have to do it until it's over. I believe there's one more wave of betas that has to be dealt with. But then after he's done with that phase, he dies pretty quickly. I think he dies right after this phase is done. Yeah. So you don't even have to kill Brawler. I think it's just once you're done with phase 2, he dies. Which is pretty nice. Swindler is the bane of a lot of PFs because, yeah, it's pretty easy to fuck up. So, for those unfamiliar, a lot of his mechanics are shown in T. But not all of them. So he has a Buster. I don't believe it does a stack. It doesn't do a vuln stack on the tank, so that tank can just hold him forever, if I remember correctly. So the 2 mechanics he introduces here is enumeration. So enumeration is not always 3, like it is in T. It's between 1 and 4. And height is either you need to, if you get a debuff, it's purple or red. I believe I want to say purple you have to stay on the low tile. And red, you have to stay on the high tiles, so the arena changes. The Bane of Raider's Mouth. All that's going on, you have to do enumeration. So, the enumeration needs to be placed specifically. in like the right spot between like a bunch of squares. Then everyone, so you have to have a priority system for these enumeration while the positioning is going, and then you have to do your heights, and this shows up in A8 as well. By arithmetics, it's just array wide. Then there's a massive amount of ads. You might recognize some of these from A2. A lot of ads just kind of show up and they need to be dealt with. But the boss needs to be dragged away because he does a green AoE, and if any of the ads touch it, it buffs them. This actually comes up in A8 as well, because you have to fight up to 2 or 3 robots at the same time. You can't have the robot cancel anywhere near Swindler while he's doing it, because it will buff them. It applies to the ads as well. You can't have the ads anywhere. There are 2 ad phases in this. Then there's a height. Another enumeration. The final ad phase is just for snipers. They take a shot, and every time after they take a shot, they gain a damage up, so they're a DPS check. I think every DPS takes 1 ad, and then will rotate clockwise to help their others. While that's going off, the healers have any extra time, they'll help out. I think the off-take will help out too. So yeah, everyone has to kind of like contribute to another enumeration. There's not a whole lot going on Swim, but he does have 2 ad phases. You have to understand that each of these robots is just 1/4. And Vortexer is pretty intense. You kill Swindler and move on. So Vortexer is the big boy. I would say he's harder than all the other robots, and if you die to him or you die to the Enrage, you go all the way back to Blaster. It can be kind of a mess. On top of that, he has a vuln up on his mini busters, his mini tank busters, so you eventually require a swap. This was a recurring theme in Gordius and Midas, is like these bosses would do mini busters and they would put a vuln, so you kind of had to gauge how many stacks you could take before you had to swap. And then we have the bane of everybody, Compressed Thunder, and Compressed Water. While that's going on, there are ground AoEs here. I believe these... I don't remember if these were the ones. Yes, they are. So, the red AoEs are resin puddles that need to be baited. On top of that, he basically has protein waves that he kind of shows you... Random protein waves. So, he will mark... I don't remember. Looks like he marks 4 people. He just does an AoE. So he does resin plus protein. Like, diet protein is how you can think of. One of the players gets marked with ice, and he kind of has to gauge how close he can get. Oh, actually, 2 people get marked with ice. So it's a bit more generous than in that respect. You have to freeze the water thing for Ultra Flash, which you have to line of sight him with. Pretty similar to Cruise Chaser and T. Then you have to deal with another tornado. I believe Ultra Flash will cleanse that tornado, like Gavel does in T. You have another protein wave here. It could just, oh no, I'm sorry, you have to use the protein wave to kill, the fire beam to kill the tornado. My bad. Then there's a knockback. Super Cyclone. You don't want to go into the resins, obviously, the fire puddles. Or an active water tornado. Oh, and also, the water is a stack, so you have to have everyone get knocked back together. So you have to have everyone knocked back and then have them quickly slide into place to do their stack. And then you have the line of sight here of Ultra Flash. Which, as far as I know, works fairly well. I don't think I've seen anybody die to that they felt like it was their fault. No, I'm not sure if there's much else in here. I actually can't remember. You just kind of had to have, like, be ready to deal with the water and the lightning passes, I want to say. I think the lightning passed to the player that it was with, and I think the water company would give it to another person. Like if you've done T, you've seen most of Vortexer's mechanics. They were used pretty effectively in some way here, so that's, I don't have to explain a lot here. It was just a bit more generous of the stuff that Brute Justice does in T, which is nice.
10.
The Super Cycle is the only thing I don't think he uses in T, if I remember correctly.
4. Watch out. Lightning. Watch out. 2. 1. Taunt. Bait.
I should have pulled up my VOD for this one, actually, but that's fine.
I have it. Second water's out.
Stack.
Second water is out.
Play this hard, please. At A. At A. Please. R.
Burn it!
And then, yeah, it pretty much just loops. So, I think A6 is way harder than A2. It's equivalent. I think it's quite a difficulty spike. A lot of groups got stuck on this fight because it's pretty brutal. There's a lot of mechanics to go through here. In terms of fun, I think this fight's one of my favorite fights in the game. In terms of fun, I think it completely succeeds. Functionality, I can't remember any of the mechanics not working how I thought they would. Difficulty relative to... I think the difficulty spike was pretty fucking intense compared to 5. And I think it is way harder than 7, but I think that's more 7's fault than 6's. I just think the difficulty curve here is kind of insane. But the fun might... I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. All jobs have similar difficulty. I think tanks, DPS, and healers all have plenty to do in this fight, so I think it's there. I think functionality, I think it's fine. Although, it did have a bug in the beginning that needed to be dealt with. We never saw it, and we cleared, like, first couple weeks. We never saw the bug, so as far as I'm concerned, the functionality is fine. I think it's very fun. I think its only problem is this difficulty spike is kind of insane. Like, I don't think it's as bad as going from A2 to A3, so I might give it a pass. But I would say the difficulty spike is quite insane. Honestly, though, I don't think it's a huge problem, because it is Savage, and Savage was still the only thing that we had back then. And I think it's more of a failure in A7's part to not be able to keep up with 6. So, I think it's fair to give this an S. I think it succeeds in everything it tries to do. I think it's a really interesting way of doing a fight, is to have four mini-bosses in a single encounter, which I think is cool. So... I think the difficulty curve you could, like, make an argument for, but I think on its own it's good enough to, like... For a second turn, it's pretty brutal. But we've seen difficulty spikes like that. I think A8 is way harder than A6, and I think A6 is way harder than A5. I think A7 is the problem child here, and I think the difference between A5 and A6 is pretty extreme. But I don't think it's near as bad as Gordian, so I think it deserves... I think it tried a lot, it succeeded, it tried a lot of new things, it succeeded what it tried to do, it introduced a lot of new mechanics that are still used today. It's extremely fun, and in all the roles had plenty. So I think it qualifies as a fight. Time is it you're just going to talk about every fight and have 10 plus viewers at 4 a.m. Yeah. Well, after we get through Alexander, I probably won't harp on these fights for very long. I'm just kind of... Everything like Midas I kind of have to go through because a lot of people weren't around for Midas and Gordius, so... Also, hey, Dud. Alright, moving on to A7. I'm going to try to spend less time on each of these fights now. So... A7 is, quick thinks, all thoughts, it is like the primary antagonist of the story.
I mean, do you have a ley lines in between the 2 cages?
This fight wasn't tremendously easier than 6. But it was, most people did consider it to be easier than 6. The biggest reason I like this fight so much is so you remember how my criteria for judging of fights is like all jobs have similar, like, have things to do. Have similar difficulty. I think it 100% succeeds at that particular thing, and I think it succeeds at that more than a lot of fights. These are big hammer AoEs that have to be baited. If you get hit by them, you don't actually take a lot of damage, but you take a lot of MP and TP damage. So you lose a lot of resources by getting hit by it. We have Sizzle Beams, which is it's similar to the Fire Beam from A6, but it also puts a pretty rough dot on you. I think it's a pretty nasty dot from my experience. On top of that, if you get hit with anything from Quick Things while you're on these spikes, you get killed instantly. The bombs need to be pulled away, because they do a small AoE. So you need to pull them away from the group while also not being on the spikes. And yeah, if you lose a TP, it's just fucking game over. I don't remember the DPS check for this fight being tremendously low, to be fair. But there is a lot of tests in here to make sure you can pass that DPS check. Like, if you can pass the jails in this fight, you can kill the fight. So I don't think the overall enrage was hard, but there's a lot of tough jails in here. I think the purple jail is pretty fucking hard. I don't remember the green or the blue being very hard, but you still have plenty to do. Also, compared to normal, you couldn't pass the prey if I remember correctly. In Savage, you have to. Like, you have to pass it to somebody that can take it. On top of that, while that's going on, so while these jails are going on, you can only have one person in the jail. If you have two people in the jail, it becomes even more of a fucking pain. Like, if you take two people into the purple jail, you have 2 ads to kill, which can be a nightmare. While that's going on, another Stromdahl from A4 shows up, and you also have to interrupt Farrakugel again. So I think the Stromdahl is almost a copy-paste from A4. You have to kill that. It's a bit easier than the A4 one, because obviously you don't have to defeat Jagdalls. But the arena, he picks up people and puts them in one of 4 jails. The blue jail is a tank jail, green jail, healer jail. Red jail is kind of a party jail. You kind of have to not hit anything. And the purple jail is a DPS jail. Now, from my experience talking with, like, really good DPS players back then, the purple jail is pretty fucking brutal. The rest of these are just kind of, like, do the mechanics stupid. So, like, I don't know. The only reason this is considered simple, or, like, easier than A6 is because there's just not as much to do. But I think it keeps the fight interesting. I don't think it, like... I think the only problem with this fight is the difficulty curve. So I'm not going to harp on this fight too long. Like, you have jails. You have the 4 jails. I've already explained that. You can't hit anything in that jail. You have to dodge these giant fucking balls because they will hit you. You also have to keep the boss away from the True Heart. I think it does a lot of neat and interesting things. And I think the biggest problem with this fight is like, it doesn't oh yeah, you can see how close that fucking got. If that gets to Quick Things, I believe it's a wipe in Savage. I believe one stack is pretty much a wipe. If not 1 stack, 2 stacks. Another issue with this fight is if anybody dies, I believe he gets a stack. And on top of that, if the True Heart... Yeah, that's what it was. I believe if anybody dies, he gets a stack. And I believe he gets multiple stacks if the heart gets him. So I believe the heart can never reach him. And I believe you can only suffer, like, a death or 2 before it's over in this fight. So I think it's pretty punishing relative to the 3rd turn. So I think that's good. But the only thing that holds it back from being harder than A6 is it does not have as many mechanics as A6 had. I think that the DPS and the heal check is great for its placement in A3 or in the 3rd turn of the tier. I think it succeeds at that. I find it pretty fun. I think ping-wise, it has some problems. I think it has problems in a few categories. So, the easiest way to explain this is... My brain's not working. Give me a second. I'm gonna get a drink. So, for these jails, they start running 2 jails at once. One is a tether, and one is a prey pass. And if you've ever played Final Fantasy for any reasonable amount of time, you know how difficult, or like how finicky tethers and preys can be. The tethers were way less of a problem in this fight. The tethers and prey weren't too bad, but sometimes they can be finicky. The biggest problem I have functionality-wise with this fight is... Let's see if I can pull you over arounds here. So merry-go-rounds combine the hammers from the start of the fight that you have to dodge or you lose all your resources with the flamethrower, which just puts an Ifrit explosion on you. You can't be close to the party. But the issue is a lot of, like, mechanics were generally accepted, yeah, like, a healer, after they were done with the Ifrit mechanic, had to rejoin the party while he was doing a raid-wide. So if your ping was bad, you could get killed despite not being on the spikes. I had personal experience with that. Now, I think you could wait to rejoin the party, but if the Scholar was the one having to heal the party during all these raid-wides, because while you're dodging these hammers, it does a bunch of raid-wides, so if you had the Scholar being the one that had to heal the party, it could be a huge pain in the ass. So I think most people preferred, especially if it was the White Mage, to just have the White Mage rejoin right before they raid-wide. So I had unfortunate situations where I would die despite not being on the spikes, so. I think the two places where A7 lacks the most is difficulty relative to the other fights. I think it's easier than A6 because it has less mechanics. And functionality, it could be a bit weird. So I think it's lacking a bit in both these categories. But I think it's fun, and I think all the jobs have a lot to do. So I think, according to my criteria here, I think this falls under a B tier fight, and I think that's fair. I think it's 100% fair. So I think Quick Fix falls under B tier, and I think that's 100% fair. Moving on from that, I'm not gonna kind of harp on Brute Justice for too long. Brute Justice is pretty much where they wanted the difficulty of A4 to be, but unlike A4, it's actually fun to. And I'm gonna try not to stay on this fight for too long because it's a very long fight. But how this fight works is the biggest problem with this fight is kind of the infrastructure of the game, because having to wait for cooldowns fucking sucks. I think in this video, they're still waiting for cooldowns. So, how this fight works is, it reintroduces a lot of mechanics from A6 on top of adding a new one of Onslaughter. So Onslaughter is the base of Brute Justice. And he has a few things to do. There's a lot of solo DPS checks in here. You have to dodge AoEs. After Onslaughter is done, you basically have to fight all the robots from A6 at relatively the same time, or you have to kill them very close to one another. On top of that, once they hit 50%, they kind of activate, and they do more damage, or they do more mechanics. And like I said, you can see that you have to fight Blaster and Brawler. You have to pull Blaster away from Brawler because he does the buff thing that Swindler does. You have to keep. While that's going on, he has cannons to do. And this is also like a DPS check. The Robot Council is considered a huge wall back when you were progging Mike. This fight is absurdly long, has a fuck ton of mechanics, has a pretty difficult DPS check. It is pretty much the quintessential 4th tier fight. Like, whenever someone says, what's a good 4th turn, everyone will point to this, because it succeeds at everything. It has good music, it's fun, it has a lot to do, it has plenty of walls, it's just a fantastic fucking fight. Now, I'm not gonna harp on these too long, because otherwise we're gonna be here for 6 fucking hours. So, you just have so much to fucking do. Once you kill the robots, they all combine into Brute Justice, and it's super cool. And then he gives you a lot to do as well. I think pretty much anybody that's familiar with T would see that he has pretty much the same things to do. He has super jumps. He has Apocalyptic Ray, which he spends a little time casting, that you have to get behind. It's pretty much the same shit. Once that's done, he goes into Wing Justice. Or, I'm sorry, he has intermissions where you have to deal with the robots doing mechanics again. Enumerations are about, like, a lot of A6 mechanics are here. It's just, it can be brutal. Once you've killed Brute Justice once, he has another intermission, and then he resets his whole health again. And you go into Wing Justice. I believe for this one, this is the one with Vortexer using the Ultra Flash from A6, and you have to line of sight him with fucking with the legs. The legs of this motherfucker right here. Fucking Onslaughter, that's the name. Yeah, here you go. Yeah, you have enumerations, and you have to line of sight Ultra Flash, which I think is super fucking cool. After you were done with that, you do Gavel, which is much harder than you have a lot more to do in this fight, and I'm not going to bother explaining this because it would be a lot. After that, he goes into a soft enrage of Flame Tornadoes, which is... I think Brute Justice soft enrage is easily my favorite in the game, like by far. And that's the reason I like T so much, because, yeah. The problem with this DPS check is I don't remember A8 having an absurdly hard DPS check, but if you did the sack strat towards the end of Wing Justice, it became pretty fucking difficult. I don't remember how close they were to dying in the world first, but I would like to see stuff. Waiting for litany.jpg. Was Astronaut popular for raids back then? No, because, So, a big thing in this... So, I don't remember... So, in Midas, they buffed Astro a good bit. But in Gordius, Astro's mana economy and healing was pretty fucking bad. And with the heavy amount of heal checks in Gordius, you could not break an Astro. Now in Midas, they started to buff Astro. You could take it for a good bit of fights, but again, the heal check in this fight is pretty fucking intense. So you can see, as the J waves start increasing, you can see more and more fucking Tier 3s coming out from the White Mage. Yeah, here's another Tier 3. Like, it became the problem of, Astro's pretty okay now, but we still need Tier 3. Like I said, you can see how intense this fucking damage gets. Like, yeah. As they kill it, they're taking 80% of their health per J. So it's not that Astro was bad, it's just that the heal checks, it couldn't meet these heal checks as comfortably as people wanted. Also, this fight has my favorite cutscene. See it yourself. As he falls over with his wings, the entire party looks tired as fuck, and I love it. I really wish they would bring that back. They knew it was hard. They wanted it to be hard. I believe it took like 2 or 3 weeks to kill. It was a lot of fun. It's a great fuck. I'm going to go ahead and tell you now, if you were not there, Midas is the best 4th turn in the game. Midas A8S is the best 4th turn in the game, by far. It's not even close. Anything, like, when I rank all of the turns, side by side, A8S is not even close. There's no 4th turn in this game that comes close to the difficulty, the fun. It just, like, it just doesn't compare. Like, the only thing you could compare this to would be Nail, and even then I think Brute Justice. And I'm not doing Nail in this tier list, so I'm not going to bother with it. But, like, there's no, like, there's no 4th turn that's even close to 8AS, especially in this list. Brute Justice shits all over Manipulator, Neo X Def, God Kefka. Like, nobody comes close. It does everything much better. It's all the DPS checks are hard but fair. Or all the DPS and heal checks are hard but fair. It completely utilizes mechanics. There's a fuck ton of mechanics in this fight, but a lot of them you've seen before in A6. So despite there being new mechanics like Gavel, you have like relative familiarity with a lot of them. Its difficulty is fantastic. It's a hard fight. It's a hard fight because it's the final turn. That's all you had, so it had to be hard. I would consider Brute Justice to be like a mini ultimate for the most part. Like this, like Brute Justice is ultimate before ultimates were a thing. I think it succeeds at everything it tries to do. I think all of the mechanics work just fine. There's no Nisi in this fight, so there's no weird prey passes. I think everything worked fucking fine. I think the only problem some people had is they would accidentally push Robot Council, so people had some problems with that. But beyond that, I think, and that was their own fault for like damage, not watching health bars. But I understand that could be a pain to some people. But in terms of what it succeeded to do, I think it succeeded at everything it needed to do here. You can tell this video is kind of improv here, but it's like, it was extremely fun. It worked almost perfectly. It was a perfect difficulty curve, like, for the 4th turn, and to have, like, to this be the last, like, imagine if you don't do ultimates don't exist here. So once you're done with Brute Justice, if you're done. Like, you have nothing else to do. So it was appropriately difficult for that consideration. Once you were done with Brute Justice, you were done with the tier. Just like people that don't do ultimate, like once you kill Shiva, you're done with Eden's verse. So it's like, but there wasn't even ultimate to fall back on back here, so I think it was perfect. I think this is the perfect 4th turn, especially considering there was no ult. So, easily an S tier fight for me. Also, hey Sierra. Like, this fight succeeded at everything it tried to do. It had a metric fuck ton of mechanics in it, but it also managed to keep it fun, functional, and difficult. Every job had something to do with the fight. So, I personally love it. Holy fuck, we're an hour and a half in already, and I'm not even done with Alexander. A8S is the perfect 4th. A8S has everything that a 4th turn should need to, like, be good. On top of this, it was a 4th turn that respected its player base, despite there not being an ultimate. Oh, also, I just realized I have the wrong name. This is overall rankings. This is relevant. Like, the standouts of Gordius and Midas here are A1, A6, and A8, but if there was like an S+, I would probably put A8 here. A8 excels at everything it tries to do. It is just, it's a fantastic fight. I love this fight. I think it's amazing. I think people loved it, even if they couldn't. It was, Midas is when the World First race, like, people started, like, being more interested in it, and the World First race was much more interesting. It was so funny because I think A5 through A7 only didn't take that long, like a few days maybe, 3 or 4 days, and then like A8 took like 2 weeks. No, it's not named Scratch Compactor. It was just like, I don't remember. I think it's Refurbisher. Yeah, it's Refurbisher. So, looking back on Midas, I think Midas was a much better tier. I mean, we're talking like A5, A7, A6, 8, all succeeded what they tried to do, I think. A7 only had problems with difficulty curve and functionality sometimes. Ratfinks was, I don't even remember why I didn't get asked. You guys remember why I ranked today? I don't remember. But I don't know, I think Midas is one of the best tiers in the game. I think Rat was S, personally. Yeah, I don't remember why I bumped it down, but I think it's a fantastic fight. I think the 3 DPS sometimes don't have a lot to do, besides hit the boss, which is fair. I don't think it's as strict as Gordius needed to be, which isn't necessarily a problem. I will forever be dismayed that was still a casual. Yeah. Well, you know, with this time walking shit they're adding with like Shiva Extreme, they may bring it back. I don't know. I don't remember why I put A5 in here, but I'm gonna stick with it. But still, like, this is still good. I think all of the good fights are in here. I don't even think B's bad either. Like C and F is where I start having problems. Some degree of downtime, yeah, but it's a problem with when it becomes a role-based downtime. Like, if a DPS job doesn't have a lot to do, if, like, for example, like, 1 DPS can have a lot to do activating the Goblixer, but the 3 DPS aren't doing much besides hitting the boss, while the healers and the tanks and 1 DPS have plenty to do. I think that's lopsided fight design. It's not nearly as bad as later fights, especially Omega. I think Omega is the poster child for lopsided fight design, but A5 kind of showed that a little bit. I think every fight can have these problems if you, like, nitpick at it, but I think A5 had a little more than most of the fights in Midas, I would say. Like, when I say S, I think, like, almost perfect at everything it succeeds to do. Like, I don't think A6 is perfect, but I think its problems are small enough to where you can pass it off. I don't think A5 gets that leniency here, but I think otherwise, it's a very close to S tier fight, I would say. I don't think A5 has a ton of problems. I would say it's very close to S. I would say, depending on how I'm feeling, I would put it in S. But I think it deserves an A or S tier spot by far. And overall, I think Midas is a fantastic fucking tier. Midas is one of the best Savage tiers in the game. I think it is the best Savage tier in the game. It is amazing, though. Let me turn this music down a little more. So, you can kind of see how I feel about the majority of Alexander here when they were still being, difficult, relative to Savage. And Creator represents kind of like a shift in fight design. Like, Savage was like, they wanted more people to clear Savage back then, like all of Savage, so they started really, really bringing the difficulty down here. Before we move into my brain's not working, I'm sorry. Before we move into Creator, I'm gonna kind of go over where I feel all the extremes kind of land. So Ravana is extremely fun, although I do not find the butterflies, I don't find the ad phase that good. The shields can kind of annoy some people. I didn't have a problem with it, but I can understand. I think it works just fine, although some didn't really have an issue with functionality here. And I think the difficulty was appropriate because you needed these weapons to enter Living Liquid and whatnot and clear it, so I think it's perfectly fair for how difficult it was. I don't think it was absurdly hard, but I think it wasn't as fun as, like, its contemporaries. Like, I think there were a lot better extremes, even back in A Realm Reborn, that had, like, better things. Like, I think Titan Extreme is a better fight than Ravana, even if the tick rate was worse back then. But I still think it's a very good fight. I think it is slightly lacking due to the butterflies, and sometimes the shields can be annoying. But other than that, I think it's a fantastic fight. It tried a lot of things, and I think it succeeded. Was an interesting, yeah. A9 was an interesting implementation mechanics, but all of Creator felt lackluster. Yeah. Yeah. I think Ravana has succeeded at being a gateway for people to kind of enter into Living Liquid, so I think it's an A. Bismarck is not fun. Bismarck is basically A2, but with a boss that doesn't do much to hit on it. I don't think it's very good. I don't even remember. Wasn't Bismarck? What was the item level of Ravana and Bismarck weapons? I don't remember. What did Bismarck drop? I don't remember. Let me check real fast. We are going to Limitless Blue. What did Limitless Blue drop? It dropped weapons. Was it added later, I guess? I don't remember. What did Ravana drop first? I-70 weapons? Yeah. What did Ravana drop? Oh, 190. So yeah. So Bismarck was meant to be, I guess, like a baby fight. I don't understand, like, so this is another problem. Ravana and Bismarck both dropped at the same time, but Bismarck really had no incentive to play it besides, like, kind of ease you in. I did Bismarck first, and I was able to PF it and kind of figure it out on my own. But the issue is, why does this fight exist? In fact, I think this fight has a huge problem, because if it had dropped accessories that were slightly better than crafted gear or something, that made it easier, like, you had to do more work to get, like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't think Bismarck really has a reason to exist, and on top of that, I don't find it that fun to do ads over and over. It has the A2 problem, but it also doesn't have a reason to exist because Ravana drops better weapons. Like if you're a group grinding world first, you have no reason to touch this fucking fight. Did anybody do this fight? I don't remember. I don't think they did. I don't think anybody cared about this fight, which is, like, not inherently a problem. Like, not everything has to cater to gear in, like, the world first race, but it also isn't fun, which is another problem. So I don't think it's that fun. I think functionality, I think it's fine, but it doesn't really justify itself at all. It doesn't justify its existence in the slightest, which is a very unique problem with this fight. I also don't remember, like, it's pretty lopsided. Well, I don't know. No, I would say it's lopsided. Because DPS check is not hard. Although, I would say, I don't know. Healers don't have a ton to do. There's a few tank swaps. DPS don't have a ton to do. But it's not fun. It functions just fine. But there's no reason for it to exist, which would qualify as difficulty relative to tag. So, I don't know. I don't think it fails on all fronts, but I think I would qualify as a D fight. I don't think it's fun. I don't think the difficulty. So yeah, C is very lacking. So yeah, I would call this a C fight for sure. Thoradin, Thoradin was a catch-up raid, right? Yeah, I think these weapons were released later after the World First Group, and it was meant to make Gordius a bit easier, which was nice. And oh my god, did it make you earn those fucking weapons back then? I would say Thoradin is still probably the hardest extreme in the game, right? I mean like at the time, obviously. I would say Thoradin difficulty-wise completely succeeded. Like, you may say it's a little too hard for an extreme, but it's like, if you wanted to earn your baby weapons, like your weapons that make Gordius easier, you really had to earn them back then. Yeah. I think it completely succeeded what it did. I think it's a very fun fight. I think almost all of the mechanics worked just fine. I think there was towers, lookaways. I think the lance at the start of Thoradin could be a little weird, but I think it was fine. I think all the jobs had plenty to do. I really like this fight. I would say, in terms of extreme primals, I think this is 100% the benchmark here. Yeah. And yeah, nowadays it would 100% be a Savage fight, so... I think it's fun, I think it works just fine, I think it really makes you work for these weapons, and I think all of the jobs have plenty of things to do. So, I would say Thoradin is an S tier fight. Also, we go into Sephiroth here. Sephiroth was also a fight that kind of made you earn it. I don't think it's near as hard as Thoradin, but I do think it's harder than Ravana. So I find Sephiroth to be very fun. Sephiroth, Sephiroth was the equivalent of Ravana. These were the weapons you wanted prior to going into Midas. Now, you did not need Sephiroth weapons near as much as you needed Ravana weapons. Because I don't think the wall, there was never like a huge wall in Midas outside of Brute. But, like, there was plenty of reason to do the fight, to give you more of an advantage. So I think difficulty-wise, it completely succeeded. Fun-wise, there is a small problem with this fight. And the biggest issue with Sephiroth is, if you get knocked off in Sephiroth, and let me whoops. If you get knocked off in Sephiroth, you are gone for good, yeah. So the difficulty was a little much, I guess. I think for an extreme primal, I think that's kind of unnecessary to have like a you're gone forever. I also don't think that sort of punishment is very intelligent. Like, I don't think getting knocked off being, like, I don't think it's good in Titan, I don't think it's good in Sephiroth. Like, getting knocked off and being gone forever is a very, very dumb thing, but I think it functions fine. I think all the jobs have plenty to do relative to extreme primals. So really, I would consider this pretty similar to, like, Ravana in terms of, like... my 4 criteria here. I think while Ravana was fun... was the first primal to destroy part of my PC. So Ravana was fairly fun, although the butterflies and the shields kind of annoyed me. But it functioned fine. It was a fine fight to kind of gatekeep you into A1, or like Gordius in general. And I think Ravana had plenty to do for all 3 jobs. Like, the tank busters hit pretty hard for an extreme primal. Sephiroth kind of has a similar thing going on here. But either you could call it a lack of fun or too much difficulty, but I do not think being gone forever is very good. Honestly, I think the knockoff mechanic can kind of hurt it in 2 categories. But I still found it pretty fun, I don't know. Hard to say, really. Kind of like thinking about it here. What item level was? Item level did Sephiroth drop? I don't remember. So moving on, that was 220, yeah. That got you an advantage in Midas. So I think it had plenty of reason to exist difficulty-wise. But yeah, I would say it's got the same problems. I would call it a B tier fight, and that's just because I don't think like the falling off the stage was a good idea back then, both with Titan and Sephiroth. So I would call that a fun issue, but I think everything else about that fight is very good. I would call that a B tier fight. Now moving on to Sophia. I'm gonna change the song before my VOD gets muted. Anyways, moving on to Sophia. I believe Sophia was the catch-up raid. So we have to compare it to Thoradin here. Or are we moving on to... No. That's not right. That's not right. My apologies. We're moving on to Nidhogg here. Nidhogg was our catch-up raid, wasn't it? Yeah. Nidhogg was the catch-up raid for Midas. Yeah, that was 3.3. So... Sorry, I'm on the wrong song here. So Nidhogg... I think Nidhogg is a good bit easier than Thoradin, but I think it still accomplished most of what it needed to do. Like, Nidhogg still made you earn your weapon, in my opinion. I still think it was a pretty fun fight. I still think it functioned pretty well. Yeah, I think the heal check was good. I don't think the tank busters were absurdly difficult. I don't think there was a lot going on for tanks. In fact, I remember when I did this fight on all 3 rolls, I remember thinking tanking was extremely easy. Healing and DPS have plenty to do, though, and I think it still made you earn your fights, and I still think it has a reason to exist. But I will say that slightly lopsided fight design puts Nidhogg at A for me. So I think that's the only reason I consider it lower than Thoradin. So from there, we would move on to our gatekeeper for creator. Yeah. Because yeah, that dropped with creator, and Sophia was the weapon you could use to get into creator better, if I remember correctly. Yeah, R255. So moving on to Sophia. Sophia was the first fight to do away with the falling off the arena, knocking you out of fight, and thank God they did that, because holy fucking shit. If they had not done that, this fight would be a fucking disaster. So, functionality, I think it works perfectly, Sophia. Difficulty, I think it is a lot easier than its contemporaries, so we compare, what are we comparing Sophia here to? We're comparing Sophia to Ravana and Sephiroth. Now, compared to those 2 fights, I would say Sophia's closer to Ravana than Sephiroth. I think where Sophia lacks is... I'm trying to think to myself here. I'm trying to, like, my brain's trying to, like, redo all the memories of Sophia here. Yeah, slip and slide. I don't find Sophia extremely fun as a fight, which is the problem here. I think Sophia, I don't know, I don't find its mechanics super engaging, and I don't find the ad phase that good. There's a lot of things to do, but the DPS check isn't very difficult. I don't find slip and slides very interesting. And it just had a lot of fewer mechanics. I would say it's more equivalent to Ravana, but I don't remember finding Sophia near as fun as Ravana. It works just fine, and I'm glad they did away with Sephiroth's problems. But I would consider the fun part to be a big problem with me personally. Is that I don't think Sophia was near as fun as Ravana. I think if Sophia had like a bit more interesting mechanics, it would be equivalent to Ravana, but I think Sophia qualifies as like a B. And moving on to Zervan, I mean, we pretty much... I mean, Zervan I would say is more fun than Sophia. But Zervan is way easier than Sephiroth. And Thornton. So Zervan is our catch-up raid. So in order to compare... So we compare Zervan to Thornton and Nidhogg. Zervan is way easier than both in terms of healing, tanking, and DPSing. So difficulty... So its catch-up weapons are way easier to get than Nidhogg and Thornton. So I would say, in terms of difficulty, relative to, like, its position... So, like, Zervan's ability to hand out weapons for Creator, which was already an easier Savage tier than Gordius and Midas, was very lacking. Later, have a good one. Sorry, I just got talking, didn't I? I felt the need to justify all my opinions here. But if I remember correctly, Zervan functioned just fine, although the chains could be a little weird. So we could consider that a slight problem. Zervan's difficulty was a huge fucking problem, I think. Because not only was Savage way easier, but Zervan was way easier than Thornton and Nidhogg. And on top of that, it was giving you weapons for an already easy Savage tier. And yeah, skip sword. I also find the first phase to not be super interesting. It's just kind of like, it's kind of there. Honestly, everything after the ads is good, in my opinion. But I feel like, it kind of reminds me of Leviathan. Where it feels like everything up to the final phase with the chains and whatnot is kind of superfluous, and it doesn't really need to be there. Kind of nice to even call it a first phase, yeah. I mean, like, the ads were okay. And Phase 2's okay, but there's not a whole lot going on. And on top of that, Phase 1 has almost nothing going on with it. So, Phase 1 almost doesn't have any reason to. And Phase 2 and ads are a little too easy, so it kind of feels like... And let me take a drink real fast. But Zervan is indicative of a problem you will see a lot more often in this game. Where it becomes a problem where you almost feel like you're paying a time tax just to get back to the hard stuff. And this is a huge problem with Leviathan, which I will get back to later. But the issue is Leviathan is probably more fun, and the fun parts of Leviathan kind of justify the time tax, quote-unquote, where Zervan really doesn't. On top of that, it's just so much easier. So it's not as fun to get to Phase 3. Where, well, I guess if we can... So Phase 2 for me is the bit of Zervan being in the arena and ads. I don't think it's bad. I think it's okay. Phase 1 doesn't have a reason to exist. Phase 2 is eh. And Phase 3 is good. So I think it's lacking slightly in the fun department, but I think the difficulty is where it's very lacking. So the reason I would give this like a C question mark here is a failure in the difficulty and the fun part. And the reason I say this is because... Oh, sorry. I don't know why I had Sophia's on while I was doing this. Like, Zervan aesthetically was great, in my opinion. Like, I really liked the song, and I liked his, like, design and whatnot, but... It began this thing where it felt like you were paying a time tax to get back to the good phases. So I would say it's slightly lacking in the fun department. I think functionally it was fine, and the difficulty was completely a failure in the difficulty department. if you couldn't clear Creator with, I'm sorry, my brain's not working. If you couldn't clear Creator with Sophia weapons, and you needed Zervan weapons to catch up on, it didn't justify it. Like, my opinion is the catch-up raid should always be harder than the initial raid. Like, Thoradin was way harder than Ravana. And what did we say our catch-up raid was for Midas? I think Midas we opened up with Sephiroth, and the catch-up raid was Nidhogg. I think Nidhogg and Sephiroth both justify their existence. And then Sophia is not as fun, but at least it was justified in having weapons to get into Creator. And Zervan's weapons are way better than Sophia's. But it's not, like, it's not very hard at all. In fact, I would consider Zervan to be easier than Sophia in most cases. Because it's not nearly as punishing, there's not as much to do. Like the core mechanics of Zervan don't punish near as hard as Sophia's. And on top of that, it makes Creator easier for you as a whole. So I think in the difficulty place, it completely fails at what it was trying to do. And I remember Yoshi saying something like, oh, we're going to make this harder because most people have cleared Creator already. So by Yoshi saying that, we have implied that this fight needs to be harder than most of its contemporaries, Thoradin and Nidhogg, to justify its existence. It does not. It completely fucking fails. It entirely fails. So, we have it completely failing at difficulty, and it's okay and fun-wise. But I think it takes too long to get to where it starts being fun. So, honestly, I don't know. The hard part of Zerva is when you PF it, yeah. So, I don't know, I would consider this a C fight. For different reasons than Bismarck. But I think Zervan was a failure at a catch-up raid, or a catch-up extreme, where Nidhogg and Thoradin succeed in that respect more often. Yeah, I don't know. Getting to Phase 3 sucks, and it is way easier than even Sophia, which is the entry point into Creator, but Zervan is way easier for people, and Yoshi pretty much lied to the player base, because he was like, we think this will be way harder. It was not. It was way not, because it was undertuned, and it's just an unfortunate scenario, because I think Zervan had the potential to be a lot better if it just made a few adjustments, number adjustments. So, I think C is fair here. And I believe we got through all the Heavensward Primals pretty quickly there, so that's good. So I'm going to get up real fast, and then we're going to move on to Creator real fast. I'm going to kind of try to run through this, so I'll be right back. I was muted. Whoops. What I was saying before I came back was, I consider fun and relative... I'll just rename it. Relative difficulty. I consider fun and relative difficulty to be way more important than functionality, unless a fight's completely broken, and lopsided fight design. Although, again, the reason I have functionality and lopsided fight design here... Lopsided job balance. Fight job balance, maybe? Yeah, we'll there. So I weight fight job balance and functionality way lower than relative difficulty and fun. However, there are problems later on that we'll talk about here. So, moving on to creator, and I'm gonna kind of try to power through this real fast. So moving on to creator. Creator was kind of when they started toning the difficulty down a bit so more people could clear the fight. And for the most part, I think it succeeded pretty well. I think most of us kind of, like, we saw the live letter where they were like, okay, we're going to be making this easier than Midas, and kind of were a little sad. Because, again, we didn't have Ultimate back then. We did not have Ultimate back then, so... It's like, yeah, to be fair, 04 wasn't very hard either. But at least we had UCOP. And yeah, Sigma Escape completely fucking sucked. But at least we were getting an Ultimate. We didn't know the Ultimate was gonna be back then, but at least we had an Ultimate. So when they said they were making these fights easier, we kind of got sad because there was no Ultimate. In fact, creators being easier on top of the content drought was even worse back then. Because, like, creator lasted longer than Midas and Gordius, but it wasn't near as hard as either, which is a huge problem in my opinion. Like, if Brute Justice was the final fight, I wouldn't have near as much of a problem with this tier as if creator and Midas were swapped out. I wouldn't have near as much of a problem. If Alexander Prime was some giant robot or whatever, I wouldn't have near as much of a problem with it. So, moving on to Trash Compactor very quickly, or I'm sorry, Refurbisher. I think for a first turn it's okay. I don't really have a huge problem. I don't have a huge problem with this fight in general. But the DPS check is not that hard. I don't even think it was that hard to heal either. Although, to be fair... I was a much better player back then than the contemporaries. Let me go check my logs. I think I have 3 pinks back then. Yeah, I have 3 pinks. And that, granted, healing was not hard back then, but it was way harder than it is now, to be fair. I thought I used to have 100 here. I used to have 100 on Boss C, but either way, 3 pinks is fine, and an orange. So you have to understand that, like... While I may have considered myself better than most of the player base, I still don't think Refurbisher was anywhere near as hard as its contemporaries. I think comparing A9, I think the closest comparison for A9 would be to A5. And I don't find its mechanics as fun as A5's. I don't think it's as hard as A5, although it's close. So I think it's slightly lacking on fun and relative difficulty. I think functionality, it was fine. Although the Full Metal Foss waiting to move sometimes could be a pain. Having to move all the ads sometimes could be a bit annoying. But I don't think it was a huge problem. In fact, I don't think functionality was really lacking per se. But I would say it's slightly lacking the fun, relative difficulty, and the functionality department. But I think fight job balance was okay. I don't remember the tanks having a ton to do, but they did have to keep the boss pointed, so when it did scrap line, it didn't kill everybody. Healers had to deal with the massive amounts of damage on whoever was tethered to these ads. When I look at Refurbisher, and I'll rename it. When I look at Refurbisher, I kind of have a feeling this is what they were trying to do with A2, and they did a much better job with it. But I still don't think it was fantastic. It was an okay fight. I don't know. Hard to say where I want to put this, honestly. Also, I'd like to say that the difficulty for Creator is much better than Gordius and Midas. I think the difficulty curve is perfect here. Whereas Midas and Gordius had some problems. But, what do I feel about this? I mean, according to my criteria, it would be a C fight, but I'm not really sure if it deserves a C. I don't know. Hard to say. I'm like looking at these fights on my FF vlogs and kind of trying to see how I feel about it. I don't know. Hard to say. Because I had fun with it, but I really think it was only fun because I skipped so many mechanics. I think that's another problem with Creator, is the DPS checks were so low that you could skip a lot of them. So no, I think a C is fair. Because while I had fun with it, if you can skip half of the fight, or even a quarter of the fight, and because it's way easier than its contemporaries, I consider that a failure. In fact, I consider that a failure at fight job balance, so I don't know, I think C is fair. Moving on to Lame Bricks, also an incredibly easy DPS check, but it was very fun. I think... Who are we comparing this to? I don't think you compare it to A6, I don't think that's fair, because A6 is a huge DPS spike. But I think it's way better than A2. I think it's pretty fun. I don't think it's lacking in fun department. Relative difficulty maybe slightly compared to A6 and the DPS check of A2, but very slightly. Functionality, it worked just fine. And let's see, I don't remember the tank busters being that hard, or being that hard to heal, or DPS, so maybe a B fight. I think a B is fair here. Moving on to Cruise Chaser here. Moving on to Cruise Chaser, we have what? I think Cruise Chaser is a pretty fun fight. Compared to Living Liquid, and I think Cruise is closer to Quick Things than a lot of people think. So I don't think relative difficulty is a huge problem. I think it succeeds there. Functionality is a problem because you can skip a lot of these things almost unintentionally. So I think it's lacking there. Job balance was fine. I think healers, DPS, and tanks all had like things to do. Functionality is my biggest problem here, because yeah, you can almost unintentionally skip things. I think I've had groups that have unintentionally skipped things. So, I don't know, I like Cruise, but yeah, I don't think it's an S tier fight. I think it's an A tier fight, for sure. Moving on to A12, I think A12 accomplished what it set out to do very well. To make an easier fourth turn than Midas, but still challenging, I think it succeeded there, for sure. I still had a great time with it, so I think it was very fun. And I think the only problem I have with in the relative difficulty category is this fight would have been better swapped with A8. I think Brute Justice should have been the final turn, and Alexander Prime should have been like the second turn or the first. I don't qualify. I'm not comparing Alexander Prime to Brute Justice, or I'm sorry, to Manipulator, but I am comparing it to Brute. So I think relative difficulty kind of failed that. But you really couldn't skip most of the mechanics, and you only learned about the tether breaking bug much later in the fight's lifespan. And the healers had plenty to do in the final phase. Had a lot to do in phase in general. Just they had to make sure everyone was top before they took like 80% of their health from defamation and whatnot. I don't know. I think it was very fun. I think the relative difficulty was lacking. I think the functionality was fine. So yeah, I would call this an A tier fight for sure. So compared to Midas, it's lacking a bit. You have one B tier fight, one C, and two A's, but it's still a good tier. I think most of us were like we're like, if this is the quality they want to put out, it's mostly okay if they want it to be easier. But we hope there's more to do along with Savage, because it's like, if you're gonna have Savage beat this easy, we kind of want a little more, especially in the final turn. So when they announced Ultimate, we were like, okay, if Delta Escape is on the quality of Creator, then we're mostly okay with that, right? Am I stuttering again? Yeah, we are. Although it's fine because we're doing a fucking... We're doing a spreadsheet stream, so let's move on to Omega real fast. I'm just gonna play XS theme while we go through this. Let's just run through Neo X stuff. Anyways, moving on. Oh, actually, we should do the extreme real fast. I'm not gonna change the music. So, moving on to Susano Extreme. Now, if I remember correctly, Susano Extreme was... Was this back when they started delaying fucking... Is this where they started delaying the Savages a bit? I think it was. Delta Escape. I need to go check this real fast before we continue. I don't remember when they actually added it. Yeah, so, okay, so they started delaying Savage here. I don't remember if they did that in 3.1. They did start delaying it, so that's okay. So Susano was the fight to prep you for Delta Escape, and I think it's an extremely fun fight. I think Susano's one of the most fun extremes in the game. And I think it's what are we comparing Susano to? We're comparing Susano to what? Ravana, Sephiroth, and Sophia? I think Susano's way more fun than Sophia. I think it's just as fun as Sephiroth, if not more fun. It's like Susano compared to Sophia, Sephiroth, Ravana is probably the most fun of those four. So Sophia, Sephiroth, and Ravana, I think it is more fun than all three of them. I think Sephiroth is very, very fun. Don't get me wrong, but I think Susano is more fun. Now, relative difficulty, I think it is easier than Sephiroth. I think it is probably just as easy as Sophia, and it's easier than Ravana. But I think overall Susano is fine. Relative difficulty, I think the fight works just fine. So in terms of fun, relative difficulty, functionality, and fight job balance, I think it's mostly fine. Although I do not think healers had a ton to do. This starts becoming the problem with ranking these, because they make these fights so much easier. Now, relatively speaking, I think it's okay. And I think it's very fun, and it works just fine. Is this where they started doing accessories? I think it was. Let me go to... This is where they started doing accessories, right? Yeah. So, the nice thing about Stormblood was you had two primals that had varying purposes. You had two primals of varying purposes. One was for weapons, one was for accessories. So they both had a reason to exist, at least. So you could actually compare Susano and Lakshmi to Ravana, because you get an advantage by doing both. You get accessories and weapons. So you can actually compare Susano and Lakshmi to Ravana, Sephiroth, and Sophia, which is cool. I think that was a very good decision to have them start dropping accessories. So I think Susano is very fun. I think relative to Ravana, Sephiroth, and Sophia, I think it stands just fine with them. I think it might be a bit easier, but I think it's fine. I think it succeeds at what it tries to do. I think the fights are just fine. I don't know. You could consider it a little easy. Huh? Oh. Gotcha. You're fine. So, kind of hard for me to, like, say where I want to put this. Do I consider this an S tier fight? I don't really feel like this is an S tier fight. I don't know. If it's an S tier fight, I feel like you have to earn those weapons, and I don't really think you had to earn Suzanne. This starts becoming the issue of extreme primals. Like Zervin onward. Honestly, Sophia onward, but more so Zervin onward. The DPS check is a huge fucking deal. So, no, I think Susano's, because like, I just think it's way too easy for a weapon. Because you have to consider, like, if Susano dropped accessories, I think it would be an S tier fight. Because when you think about it, weapons are the biggest DPS increase in Final Fantasy XIV. So, I feel like if you are getting a weapon from this fight, you have to earn it in some way. I think that's just my belief. And I think if you disagreed with me, I think Susano would be an S tier extreme. But because you don't really have to earn this because the DPS check is so fucking easy, it's an A tier fight for sure. Now, moving on to Lakshmi here. Lakshmi fucking sucks. I'm gonna be honest with you. Lakshmi fucking sucks. And really, it's just kinda... I don't even know what to say about this. I feel like I've repressed it because it's so fucking boring. But in the fun department, it completely fails. And then it has the Susano problem. But at least it's accessory, so I won't dock as many points off that. But I think it completely fails in the fun category. I would say if I was not adhering to these 4 principles, I would knock it down to C and just off fun. But like Shimmy is not fun. It is way too easy, but at least it drops accessories. Functionality-wise, it's fine, although I don't ever remember having a ping-related problem with Lakshmi. And I mean, dropping accessories is fine. If I remember correctly, what were the crafted? I think they were also 320. You guys remember if the crafted were also 320? What about Susano? What was Susano? It's also 3. The crafted back then. I don't actually remember. I think they were doing the thing where they were the same item level, but they were also 1 weapon damage higher, if I remember correctly. I don't actually remember. Fuck me. I have to go look this up real fast. Quality. So they're the same. Oh, that becomes a problem then, doesn't it? Yeah, so they are the same damage-wise, which I think is a problem. Although, I don't know. So, like, Susano, you didn't even have to earn them, and they could have been weaker than crafted weapon. That's a huge fucking... I might bump Susano down to B. Just because of that. But then Lakshmi is the same problem, but it's also not fun. And it's... I don't know. I really just don't like Lakshmi as like a fight. But it has like a bigger problem where... How many of these did you need for... Up, actually. How many of these did you need? Like, how many kills did you need for one Lakshmi? You needed 5 kills for one accessory? Christ. Yeah. I want to say it dropped more than 1 per kill, though. You guys remember? Hey, hun, you did a bunch of Lakshmi. Do you remember how many accessories it dropped per kill? 2? Okay. So 2 accessories. I go look this up just to verify. Let's see if someone fucking chests up when they kill it. Looks like the loot. No, Cat's right. 2 accessories per. Alright, Cat's right. Yeah. Also, yeah, it felt like forever. It had a cutscene in it, so I think it monumentally fails in the category. It had a cutscene. It wasn't fun. The crafted accessories could be better. On top of that, you needed 5 kills. Ugh. So I think 5 kills for 1 accessory is, I don't know, I think it monumentally fails. That fight isn't stupid. You're stupid. Oh, Billy. Okay. Anyways, fun sucks. Relative difficulty sucks. If you're going to make me do 5 kills or get lucky, you should at least make it slightly better, or make it objectively be better than the craft accessories. So I think it extremely fails on 2 fronts. Otherwise, it's okay, I guess. I feel like a C is generous, but I think that's fair. And then we're moving on to what, Shinryu here? Shinryu's theme was pretty good though, phase 3. If I remember correctly. Why am I the only one that understands the complexities of cutscene? Shinryu, I'm not sure if I'd call it extremely fun, but it was okay. I also think it was hard enough to where it justified its inclusion. Like you did have to earn it, in my opinion. Oh. So if we compare this to the Thornton, it's not even close. Not even remotely close, in my opinion. But you did have to earn it, at least. Still. Like, relative to the difficulty of Delta Escape, I think it was fine. I just don't think it was very fun. Fun to watch people fall off, yeah. Oh god, it's 5 a.m. It wasn't very fun. Relative difficulty is fine, I guess. Functionality is fine. Alright, I thought my wife was saying something to me. It was okay. So, like, Shinryu is our catch-up raid, so we have to compare that to what? Thoradin, Nidhogg, and Zervin? Thoradin, Nidhogg, and Zervin are our competitors here, right? Yeah. Thoradin... So Shinryu is our catch-up raid. So compared to... It's better than Zervin, at the very least. I think it's lacking slightly. It's also extremely long. But other than that, I think it's okay. I think there's a good bit to do in that fight. Like, it's an okay fight. But it's a very long fight. For a catch-up weapon for an already easy tier, in my opinion. So, it's like... Delta Escape overall, I feel, is easier than Creator. So, while it's better than Irvin... I don't think it just... I don't know. How long was that fucking fight? Let me go find somebody doing that real fast. Actually, I'll... Yeah, we're talking like a 11, 12-minute fight, perhaps? I don't know. I had an okay time with that fight in terms of fun, but I still think it was a bit lacking. And very, very long to get a weapon for an already easy tier, in my opinion. So, I think B is fair. B is fair here. Now, Byakko... Actually, we should probably do, fucking... We should probably do Delta Escape first. So... What was O1S's theme? Oh, it's the Delta Escape theme. So, moving on to Delta Escape. Delta Escape kind of falls in the shoes of Creator. So, I think it's fair to compare this to O9, or, I'm sorry, A9. So, even compared to A9, I consider it a good bit easier, I would say. I think most people would agree that fucking O1 is a good bit. Not much more, but about the same. But I don't think A9 or O1 is even as fun as A9. There just isn't a lot going on in that fight, if I'm being honest. I don't think it's that much worse than... I don't know. I could still consider it a C tier fight, because I don't think it's... Yeah, no, I think C is fair. Because while it's okay... How do I justify this in like a simple way? I feel like O1 almost falls into like a D tier. I feel like I need to make a D tier for it. Because what's our criteria here? We have it's like... We may need to make a D here for this fight. So 3 completely failed, or 4 very lacking. So, but in the fun department, I think it's lacking slightly in the fun department. I also think in relative difficulty is lacking. I don't know. It is quite easy. I think you can get through it pretty easy. I don't even remember the DPS check from A9 versus O1, but I think it's I think the DPS. If I remember correctly, I could be gaslighting. It could be gaslighting the entire FFXIV community here, but okay. First of all, might need to reevaluate a few things here. Now, see, I still think Manipulator qualifies as C, because while it is not fun, and it has sack strats, it's still pretty hard for a 4th turn, which justifies its existence, and it still had plenty for all 3 rules. Bismarck is our, what was... Did Bismarck have a reason to exist? I think that was our big problem with Bismarck. It didn't have a fucking reason. What did Bismarck drop? It just dropped shitty weapons. Yeah, it has no reason to exist. So it completely fails in functionality. It was not very fun. It's okay. Okay and fun. So it's lacking in fun. There is no reason for it to exist, but for relative difficulty, like for a weapon that doesn't need to be for a weapon you don't need, it's fine, I guess. But for functionality and fun, I think it completely failed. Two sections very lacking. One completely failed. Or 3 lacking slightly. What we need to do here is add in 2 completely failed here. So, on this respect, I think in fun, it was very lacking. Relative difficulty, I think it's fine. Like, for a weapon that doesn't matter, it's okay. No, C's probably still right for fucking business. Zervin is fun. Oh, that's probably fine too. I think we just kind of need to start like shimmy here. What did we say with Lex Shimmy? I think Lex Shimmy was... Did Lex Shimmy even have a reason to exist? Oh, you know what? No. Lex Shimmy is D tier. And my justification for this is... My justification for Lex Shimmy being D is... It doesn't have a reason to exist. Pentamelted crafted accessories are way better than Lex Shimmy. In almost every scenario. It's extremely boring... Extremely boring. Doesn't have a reason to exist. It isn't very hard. So I think it failed on 3 fronts, and the only thing that I think was good about it was that it didn't have lopsided fight design. So. Moving back to O1, it's okay in terms of fun. But the issue Yeah. But even if you didn't have, even if you didn't feel like pentamelding, there were situations where accessories, craft accessories could be better. So you could grab crafted accessories for like 80k per accessory. So you're talking you might be out 400k for a full set of accessories. And a majority of that, or like 3 of those might be better than Lex Shimmy. Or 4. Or 5. But let's just be generous and say 3. Let's just say, or 2 or 3. Ugh. Head's starting to hurt now. I wish I had made this tier from the start. I'm sorry, I need a minute. Doing this improv was a bad idea. So, let's go back to Alt-Right. So, is it fun? It's alright. Relative difficulty compared to its contemporaries of A9, a bit easier. So maybe, I mean, like, that's about the same. So we'll consider that like relative difficulty. I would say it's exceeded. Fun lacking, functionality for first turn. It's fine. Maybe lacking functionality because fuck the nice. And here comes the problem with the fight design in this game. The nice, I mean, like Delta Escape introduces a problem, and it's a big problem. It is not hard. And not only that, it's like, it's not very, it's okay. Fun-wise, it's okay. But it introduces this very lopsided fight design. I don't remember, there's no heal check whatsoever, there's no DPS check whatsoever, and there's some relatively decent hitting tank busters, that's about it. So we have extremely lopsided fight design, like very lacking in fight design. It's slightly lacking in functionality because IMO... Oh, I guess that'd be more of a fun thing. I think Thin Ice works just fine, but I don't know. I would say Thin Ice bumps right down from lacking slightly to very lacking. Relative difficulty is fine, so very lacking, and the fight job balance is just so lopsided. I don't know. I would say C is fair. Anyways, moving on to Catastrophe. Catastrophe's okay. I think fun is fine. I think it's an okay fight. 2's okay. Because what are we thinking here? Was it fun? It's okay. I think it's an okay fight. Fun-wise, I would say it's lacking slightly, but not that bad. Relative difficulty. So what are we comparing to here to? We're comparing it to A10? Pretty similar to A10. Oh, no, I would consider 2 B-tier fight, for sure. A little boring, but I think it justifies its existence, for sure. Moving on to Hallie, we have a very fun fight. Compared to A11, it completely justifies its existence. They are almost very similar fights. And, yeah. No, I'd consider Hallie like an A-tier fight, for sure. Almost S-tier. Hold on, let's pull this back a bit. So, very fun. Relative to its contemporaries, which again, we're comparing to A11, I think it completely justifies its existence. Functionality, could you skip much? I mean, you could skip most of the end of the fight, I guess, but I think you still had to do, you still had to do Animal Farm. You may be able to skip Animal Farm if you're a huge Chad. But I don't think it's fair to, like, think about this as, like, a huge speedrunner thing. I don't know. So, hard to say. Why did we bump Cruise Chaser down? Oh, we bumped Cruise Chaser down because you could accidentally skip a lot of mechanics. So I think on that note, I think Hallie is a Chaser. I would consider. I think Hallie, in terms of, I think Hallie is better than Cruise Chaser. And the reason I say that is because it is pretty much Cruise Chaser, but you can't accidentally skip a majority of its mechanics. You can maybe, if you're a Chad, skip the end, but I think 99% of groups are going to have to do Animal Farm, which is the highest difficulty spike in that. It is also extremely fun, introduces a lot of new mechanics, is just as difficult as A11 in my opinion, and has plenty for tanks, healers, and DPS. So I think Hallie qualifies as a bigger fight. Moving on to XFOS, now I'm going to change the music. Let's move on to Neo. So XFOS is So how do I put this eloquently? So Stormblood introduced a new type of thing to where it splits the fights in two and adds a checkpoint. So you could almost consider all fights in Delta or in Stormblood to be two fights: the checkpoint fight and the real fight. Which means you can't really judge it relative to A12 because A12 doesn't have a checkpoint per se. So, on that note, where do you place this in particular? Because is it fun? Is White Hole fun? Not really. Is the DPS check that hard? No. But the issue with this is like judging it relatively. So I guess the question we have to ask ourselves is this a justified Faust fight? Kind of, I guess. I don't remember. I don't know. I remember having some problems with the DPS check on this fight, so I would consider it succeeded in the difficulty department maybe, but it wasn't very fun. It was okay, but I think it's lacking in the fun department, and I think it's fine in the difficulty. I think it succeeded in that. But I also remember the fucking tethers during Black Hole, like those tethers that tethered to some player, like the fucking. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Those stupid ass balls that tethered to people. I remember. On top of that, I remember White Hole being pinged in. I remember the holes kind of like killing people from different distances. So I would say it's very lacking in the functionality department. So relative difficulty, I think it justifies its existence. Fun, lacking a bit, and functionality very lacking. Guess is lagging again. No, we're fine. Fun, slightly lacking. Relative difficulty succeeds. Functionality very lacking, and fight job balance. No, I would say it succeeds in both the difficulty and the fight job balance department, but I think it extremely fails in the functionality, and I don't think it's that fun. So if we have a very lacking fun and slightly lacking functionality, I think we should put this in. I don't think we've ever had a situation where which one has having some trouble with ranking these fights because they're kind of like a fifth turn in a way. Hard to say. Maybe we should rank these last, honestly. I think that might be a better idea, is ranking these last. So next up, yeah, we'll rank those last. So we're going to rank Neo X-Def first. And that's going to be, is that a fun fight? It's a pretty fun fight. I enjoy it. Is it as hard as A12? Almost. Almost as hard as A12. I think A12 has more going on, but I think the existence of the checkpoint boss makes it just as hard as A12, but maybe not in a good way. Maybe lacking slightly in the relative difficulty department just because of checkpoint bosses. But I think it's a pretty fun fight. Oh, but here's a big problem. Neo X-Def doesn't have a lot for DPS to do. I think it's a much harder fight on tanks and healers than it is DPS. So I think it tremendously fails in the fight jump out department. So, pretty okay fight, but I'm also not feeling too hot. So I'm not sure if we should do this right now. I have to come revisit this. Kind of like my mind's a bit more clear. My mind's a bit foggy at the moment. So, Neo X-Def, let's see. Was it fun? It was pretty fun. The issue is the checkpoint boss system kind of sucked, but I think for the time it was kind of novel. So I don't think it was like super lacking in the relative difficulty department or the fun department. I think in other fights where the checkpoint boss was new, I don't know. I still don't remember having very fond memories of X-Faust, having to fight X-Faust to get to Neo X-Stuff. So, but I think the fight itself is pretty fun. Relatively, it's almost as hard as Alexander. Like, almost. But, hard to say, really. We should probably just stop here and come back when we feel better, I think. 'Cause I'm not feeling well. I'm sorry. I know this stream's kind of sucked, but let's just make sure we're happy with all these rankings. So, I think all of these are fine. I think all of these are good. I think Cruise Chaser's only problem compared to Holly is that it could skip, like, random mechanics in that fight. Alexander Prime, biggest problem was relative difficulty, and that really was only a problem because it was the last turn in a very long content route. Quick Thanks was good, but it had like a relative difficulty problem. I think it was fun. It had two problems in the functionality and fun department. I'm sorry, relative difficulty and fun department. So I think A7's perfect where it is. What I'm holding Sophia drop. We were talking about Sophia before, weren't we? It was our catch-up raids, right? Yeah. I think Sophia had a reason to exist at least. Sephiroth had a reason to exist. Yeah, this is unfortunate because I kind of started not feeling well towards, like, halfway through this stream, so... I'm not super confident on my rankings right now. Are we happy with our Sophia placement? I would say so. I don't think it was extremely fun, but I think it justified its existence, at least. And it worked for the most part. And I don't think any of these... I don't think it had very lopsided fight design. So... I don't think it was an unfun fight either. I think what we're gonna do, because I'm not feeling well, is fucking like stop now, and then I'll kind of like reevaluate these rankings off stream maybe, and we'll come back and we'll kind of like wait, because the issue here is I'm not feeling well and I can't really like evaluate ranking very well. So, but I think these are mostly accurate. I don't think I'll change much here. Like maybe move a few ones around, like down this. Probably not. Lane Bricks is probably fine and B fine. I don't know. Yeah. I think until I start feeling better, we'll have to put the stream on hold, so... Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't expect to feel as bad as I did. I'm very, like, shaky. My head hurts, and yeah. Don't do well, so... We are going to stop there for now. And I apologize. Sorry I'm not feeling so well. If I was feeling better, I'd finish this up tonight, but... I don't feel well at all. So, or I don't feel well enough to make a decision on the tier list. So we're gonna come back to this another time. And this is kind of shitty stream. I think S and A are all accurate. I think all these fights are where they should be. But I think I need to take some time and reevaluate all these just to be safe. So I'm gonna do that. I think these are all accurate. I feel very confident in all fights. I'm gonna recall this gauntlet, just in case. But yeah, it's 5:30 and I'm kind of like, my brain's not functional, so yeah. There. Sorry about that. We'll come back when I'm feeling a bit better and been in the more mood to do this. Yeah, but I don't know. We'll call all these rankings tentative until I like have a time to reevaluate with a clearer head, and then we'll kind of revisit these. I'm pretty like happy with like the tier function, I guess. But yeah, all right. I feel like I'm just kind of like mumbling to myself, so we should stop until I feel better. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm gonna get out of here and go take some steps to feel better. I do, we will come back and fix and finish. Later. Enjoy the live. Oh, is the live letter on right now? Actually, probably like hosted or something. But yeah, I was not feeling well at all. So, live letter on. Probably not, right? No, it is not. All right. Later. Have a good one, guys.